Chapter 1. Give it all away. She still remembered the days when he used to smile. The days when he used to laugh and joke and be annoying and loud and obnoxious and goofy and himself. She remembered when he used to be happy. The days wandered by slowly, coldly. The village seemed to have dried up and lost its sheen. The proud village of Konoha was as quiet as it had ever been. The sun didn't even seem like it shined as bright. It's just what she thought as she looked up into the darkening sky. October 9th. Yamanaka Ino thought as she walked home from another mission with Shikamaru and Chuji. The two were eerily silent as they escorted their god-sister home. Tomorrow, Shikamaru stated as if reading Ino's mind. Chuji ate his bag of chips in silence. However, his sudden slouch showed that he too got upset. October 10th, Naruto's birthday. Ino remarked solemnly. It didn't take a genius to know what was wrong with October 10th. Naruto hated his birthday, and now he was going to experience it in a different type of pain, an emotional pain. I wish he would talk to us. He just walks around, that same look on his face. We know he's hurt, but why won't he talk to us? Chuji sighed, finishing off the fried snack. All three remained silent for a while, unable to answer the question. Naruto was hurt and couldn't even pretend that he wasn't. It was far deeper than they would have guessed, but then again, the circumstances went further than they realized. When's the last time you guys saw him? Shikamaru asked, glancing up at the sky as a single drop of rain hit his nose. 2 days ago. He was training with Lee again. It's the only thing I see him putting effort into anymore. Ino called sadly. They reached Ino's house just as it started to pour. Shikamaru and Chuji bid her goodbye and darted off towards their own homes. Ino sighed, unable to stop thinking about the sunny-haired blonde. She never put much thought into it, but Naruto was a necessity for Konoha to feel normal. They needed his loud proclamations, his goofy grin, his strong will and conviction. No, Naruto wasn't needed for Konoha to feel normal. He was Konoha. Everything that it was, Naruto made it that way. The dead last of the academy. The only person who I could have actually said I revolted. How did you turn out so great, just to be turned into something so much worse? Ino thought, holding herself as she walked up to her room. She wasn't the only one admitting they missed the blonde's old self. Everyone she overheard speaking of him, and everyone she saw looking at him. They all missed him. It hurt her. She had never taken any time out of her oh-so-busy schedule to even speak to him. The only times they ever really did talk was on missions. But then, Naruto went and got all grown up. It didn't stop there either. He continued to grow stronger day after day, making her admire him and turning into what she had always believed Sasuke to be. Damn it, she cursed herself for speaking that name. That person was half the reason for Naruto's feelings at the moment. The Uchiha bastard. Him and his little slut he practically has on a leash. Ino paused, eyes widening. Why did she feel that way all of a sudden? Sure, they were in the wrong for what had happened, but was it really that bad? Of course. It was far worse than that. Ino should have been beyond pissed when it happened. What made it far worse for her is that subconsciously, she had always expected Naruto to be the sunshine of Konoha. To see him shattered the way he was, it just wasn't bearable. She felt helpless. So helpless. There was nothing she could do. She didn't know Naruto well enough to say anything to him. All she knew about him was what he had proved as lies. He was dumb. Lie. He wasn't a good person. Lie. He wasn't bearable to be around. Lie. He was weak. Constantly proved as a lie. So why did everyone else know the boy that was constantly on her mind for weeks? Where had she been when Chuji and Shikamaru were becoming close friends of the blonde? Chasing Sasuke. She wanted to cry. For one of the first times in her life, she didn't want to be selfish. But she just couldn't. All of her friends could do something for the blonde, but not her. Shikamaru was his closest friend. Lee was close second. Neji and Kiba had warmed up to him like brothers, and Chuji could say the same. Hinata had achieved status as best female friend to him, though she wanted to be much more. It wasn't a possibility at the time. Even Tintin sparred with him when he used to be happy. She was always grateful to him of changing Niji. So where did that leave her? Alone. Alone because she never gave him the chance he deserved. She never looked at him the way everyone else did. She could only see the loser he was labeled 3.5 years ago at the academy. He had slowly started to change her. When he returned to the village, she sensed an aura of power from him. Then when he performed that one attack, the Rasen Shuriken, he wasn't weak. Definitely not weak. In a fight at least. So why was he so weak now? There was no fight. He just gave in to defeat, given up before it had even finished. He let them break him. No, not another night. I won't spend another night thinking of him. If that's what he let happen, it's his own fault. Ino knew it was a lie. It was his fault, but only for laying down and not doing anything about it. It was mainly because of the two that did it to him. She couldn't stop thinking about it, and just like every night prior, cried herself to sleep. At home, well, what he called home, it never really had that homey feeling. It was more like a box, a closed-in box, alone in his closed-in box, that never felt more like home before. Naruto laid in bed, thinking of nothing and everything, his eyes half closed, giving him a sleepy expression. He was sleepy, not physically, but every other way it was possible to be sleepy. It was a surreal feeling. In honesty, it felt like he was floating, or at least hovering, being absorbed into the off-white dullness of his ceiling. He hated that ceiling. It reminded him that he had to get up every day to another worthless 24 hours. It had only been a few weeks, but he forgot what worth living had. Ramen? Clothes, but it just wasn't the same anymore. His friends? They were all right, but not what he needed. Friends could come and go. Sasuke made that painfully clear. With a sigh, he got up and got dressed, no longer wearing the orange and black jumpsuit he was known for. There was nothing that would stop him from wearing orange. Oh no, but the jumpsuit was just a reminder of what he'd been through in it. Things he wanted to forget forever. He threw on black pants and put on a sleeveless orange shirt. No need to sit in the apartment all day. Sulking around town was much more fun. He could torture himself by seeing all the places he wanted to forget. Maybe he should have put on the orange jumpsuit. Why was he torturing himself? Because nothing he did could be as bad as what those two had done to him. Why wasn't he mad at them? Hell, he suspected that they didn't even realize what they did to him. If they did, then oh well. He was too nice of a person to say anything anyway. It was his fault. Everything happened for a reason, right? And everyone is responsible for their own actions. So that meant that everything that happened was supposed to happen, and that it was his fault. My fault. Another sigh, and he headed out the door, ready to start another day in his endless cycle of torture. He didn't take the time to look at the calendar. Ino awoke groggily, putting her pillow over her head as the sun beamed on her face. It darkened much too quick. Hesitantly looking up, she saw that it was still slightly dark out. A flash of lightning had brightened her room, making her think the sun was shining. Of course it's not shining. Why would it be? Looking at the small clock on her table, she sighed and got up. She had training with Anko that day. It was funny. She preferred training with Anko than anyone else. She was able to get her frustration out much easier, and boy did she have a lot of frustration lately. The thought made her a little happier. Quickly, she got up, dressed, and headed towards her training partner/sensei. The sky still loomed with the rain clouds of the day before. Then a thought hit her. She paused, the cold air hitting her hard from her sudden lack of movement. It was October 10th. Naruto, she thought sadly. Now she really needed Anko. She was getting frustrated that she couldn't stop thinking about the blonde shinobi. She felt like she was obsessing. Even with the circumstances, she was spending way too much time thinking of him, as if he meant that much to her. Maybe she should just go talk to him. It would clear up some things, especially about that night. The night that he cried on her shoulder. She paused, biting her lip. Naruto, I was the only one there, and I couldn't do anything to comfort you. Hey, Ino pig. Ino's eyes widened. Her heart skipped a beat. For a second, rage flashed across her face. Not now. Please, not now. Ino, hey, you alive? Onegai, kami-sama. Onegai, please, God. Please, no. Her prayers weren't heard as Sakura jogged up to her, holding an umbrella and a large smile on her face. Hey, Ino, you didn't hear me? No, I guess not. She nervously stated, giving a fake smile. Sakura rose an eyebrow. What's up? I haven't seen you in a while. Or anyone else for that matter. Probably because you've been too busy fucking that Uchiha bastard. Yeah, I guess we've just been busy lately. Sakura frowned. She took Ino's hand. Hey, Ino, you're still my best friend. I'm sorry that I got a Sasuke-kun first, but I don't want that to change anything between us. Ino didn't jerk back. She could only stand speechless at Sakura's words. Finally registering, Ino gently removed her hand from Sakura's. Are you serious? Sakura, you are so deluded, she said. Sakura winced. What? Think back, okay? Think back to 3 weeks ago and tell me what you've already forgotten. Then come find me, Ino stated and turned from the pink-haired girl, walking away before she could respond again. Despite her calm attitude, Ino was pissed. Enko's training had taught her self-control, but it was getting harder and harder to stay that way. She thought that I was jealous because she got with Sasuke? Was I really that deluded too? Of course you were. Ino stopped walking. Yes, she was that deluded. She had even felt that way 3 weeks ago, and she hated herself now. Just 3 short weeks ago, the only thing on her mind was Sasuke. How she finally had her chance to get with him, to show Sakura up once and for all. Her mind wasn't that far from Sakura's. She hadn't once considered the teen that had spent the last 3.5 years of his life shedding blood, sweat, and even his soul to bring the traitor back. It took what happened 3 weeks ago to open her eyes to the truth. It took that moment to make spoiled diva, Ino Yamanaka, the princess of everyone's world, realize that life wasn't going to be glamorous. That Sasuke wasn't the person she had always thought. That Naruto wasn't either. But not Sakura. She was still living in her fantasy world, unable to let go of the shattered past that was brittle to begin with. Brittle by her own hands. The past should have been marvelous if she... No, everyone would have given the time to look at the person who was changing the world. If everyone would have acknowledged Naruto in the past, maybe he wouldn't have tried so hard to get Sasuke back now, just for Sakura. But it was far too late. The past was over, and the present was ensuing. A present that made the world seem like an endless dream or nightmare. Yet the worst part was, I could have been just like her, Ino thought. It was true. She knew that if she would have gotten to Sasuke before Sakura, then she would be doing the exact same thing. She wouldn't see the bastard's true colors. She wouldn't see the pain Naruto's going through. All she would see is the raven-haired wolf in sheep's clothing. It plagued her, knowing just how dumb she really was. There was no rectifying the things she would have done. There was no correcting Sakura's mistakes. And there sure in hell was no forgiving the Uchiha. It was all his fault. Lost in her thoughts, she bumped into someone. Oh, I'm sorry, she mumbled, about to continue walking. The person didn't reply. Ino turned around to catch a slow stride of black, Orina, and blonde. And Naruto. The blonde didn't stop. He just kept walking, hands in his pockets and head down. Ino saw his movements were sluggish, off balance. He didn't wear his hitayate, letting his unruly hair lay down all around his face, like it had been wet for some time. It covered his eyes. It wasn't Naruto. It was a brittle shell of what used to be him. Naruto, where are you going? Ino called again. Naruto finally stopped walking, but made no other movements. Hey, Ino, he called flatly, and then kept walking. Ino held her chest. The tone he gave felt like a dagger of ice piercing into her. What'd she do now? Go after him? Try to make him feel better? How could she make someone else feel better if she couldn't do a damn thing for herself? She only stood in place and watched as the once loud Shinobi left her view. Once again, she found herself on the verge of tears. She didn't know why the blonde could do that to her. As she had said before, their bond wasn't as close as anyone else's, so why was she so hurt every time she saw him? She also wondered why she didn't go after him, to be there for him better than she had been that night. Ino. It had to constantly be Ino. Of all people, why her? Naruto clenched his teeth as he walked away from the platinum blonde. It was her that night. She was the one who saw me at my weakest. Kami-sama, why do you despise me? He held no ill will towards the girl, but it had to be her, the second person so madly in love with the forsaken Uchiha. You brought it back. It's your fault. It was his fault. He was the one refusing to see the truth. Him and Sakura. They both had refused to let go of the past, to let go of Sasuke. And now he was back, just like they had wanted, but only one person was happy with it. He should have been happy for them. After all, he had known all along that Sakura was still in love with him. That time she had told Naruto she loved him. He had called her out on lying to herself, but he had continued to lie to himself afterwards. He kept believing that maybe she had meant it deep down. 3 years and 7 months. That's how long he devoted himself to trying to please her and get Sasuke back. Even after the Uchiha allied himself with the person who killed his mentor, Jiraiya-sensei. He put himself through death and pain and complete, utter sorrow for her. But it wasn't enough. Death probably wouldn't be enough. Even after 3 weeks, he hadn't seen her nor the Uchiha. Wait, 3 weeks. Then that meant. His eyes widened. Today is. A chill went down his spine. Looking around, he caught sight of many villagers, looking at him remorsefully. Don't do that, he thought bitterly. Don't feel sorry for me. Hate me. Hate me like you used to. I've done nothing worth changing you, so hate me. His nails dug into his palms until they bled, and he ran. October 10th. He was 17 now. What did it mean? That he was now old enough to resign as a ninja and leave the village. But what good would that do? He was legal to any and all things now, but still, what did it matter? What was there for him to do? All that was left was for him was to live out his days as a lapdog of Konoha and die on the battlefield somewhere. Hell, he didn't even know if he wanted to be Hokage anymore. Running all the way to the top of Konoha Mountain, going faster every time someone shouted happy birthday. He skidded to a halt, letting out an anguished scream that echoed over the entire village. Tears streamed down his face. Why? Why? Why can't I have happiness? I've brought peace to the Shinobi nations like I told Jiraiya-sensei and Nagato and II. I've become one of the strongest ninjas in history. So why? Why can't I achieve my own happiness like I brought to everyone else? Is the price of true virtue so thin, so transient? Is happiness but a mere pipe dream for a selfless being? Is this what I was meant to do from the beginning? Fade into darkness along with the cold history of the world that I put there? He dropped to his knees. It was the same place where she had seen him break down, worse than he was now. But this was it now. He would cry no more. This was the last time, the last tears he had left. The earth would not get its fill on his sorrow anymore. Uzumaki Naruto was dead. Namake's Naruto was a shadow. The true Naruto was awakening. It was all that he had left. He had gave it all away. His heart, his mind, his body. All of it was gone. In its place was a mere shadow, a shell of what was formerly the hope of the world. Chapter 2. Colder at night. They had been worried. Every single last one of them. October 10th wasn't a happy day for anyone, let alone the blonde. Though no matter how much they worried, no one took initiative to go see him, because no one wanted to see their hope crumble. Going to see Naruto would be just like doing that. Watching your hope get stomped and crunched under the heel of some forsaken boot. An Uchiha sport. This isn't the time to be debating whether or not to see him. We call ourselves his friends, then we need to act like it, instead of avoiding him like some type of plague. Niji spoke calmly to the group in front of him. 9 of the Konoha, 12 stood in front of the Hyuga mansion. It was later in the day, the sun beginning to go down, but light drizzle still spraying a mist over the sleepy village. It's not that we're avoiding him. Technically, he's avoiding us. And from the looks of it, he'd rather spend his time alone, mopping in his apartment. Tintin said as she leaned against the gate next to him. Niji closed his eyes, understanding his teammate's statement, but still feeling inadequate for not doing more. It's been 3 weeks, and he's still been sulking over the 2 pests. Now today is probably the worst day of the year for him, and you don't think we should see him? Don't you think if he's been sulking for this long, he might do something dangerous today? Niji threw in. The group's eyes widened. And Naruto's not that stupid, Kiba said, not completely sure of himself. The blonde was known for doing rash things. Of course he's not stupid, but he was deeply in love, Shikamaru monotonously stated. And love makes you do crazy things, Shino added. Ino stood just behind Shikamaru. She had no input for the conversation because she was too busy regretting her life. After hearing what Niji said, she knew she should have gone after him. Now, she felt like she was being useless again, and still so helpless. No, it wasn't her that was helpless this time. It was Naruto, and only because no one was offering to help him. He's not asking for help. It didn't matter. Just because someone didn't ask for help doesn't mean that those there should just watch as they continue their downward spiral into hell. It had been 3 weeks, but there still had to be time to pull him back. But Ino didn't know how far gone he really was. I'll go see him and then come back, Ino said, finally resolving herself to see the blonde that had been on her mind each and every day. Are you sure, Ino-san? Hinata asked, a small frown on her face. Ino looked down, knowing that Hinata must have been about to offer the same thing. In any other circumstance, she would have let the dark-haired teen go, but she still needed to see Naruto for herself. She didn't know when she would find the courage to try to speak with him one-on-one again, either. Yeah, I need to talk to him. I'll come get you later, okay? Hinata lowered her head, but nodded anyway. The rest of the group looked at Ino with mixed emotions. While some thought what the hell she was doing, others began to make up more elaborate stories, namely 10-10, as a small smile graced her lips. Ino, knowing that look, instantly turned and high-tailed it towards Naruto's apartment. You don't think Dash? No, 10-10. Niji stoically stopped her. But Dash. I agree. It's better left unsaid. Shino replied next, turning to leave. Oh, come on. Shika Dash. Don't put me in it. The lazy genius called, following after Shino with Chuji next to him. Hinata also ran to catch up with her teammate. Tintin's glare turned to the last person left. Kiba swallowed hard. Hey Niji, help me out, buddy. Since when have I been your buddy Inuzuka? If I remember clearly, you referred to me as a white-eyed, stuck-up bastard with a stick in my ass. Kiba paled at his words. Niji smirked and turned to walk back into the mansion. At least don't make him go deaf, Ten-chan. Sakura was ashamed of herself. It had taken several hours for her to realize what Ino had been talking about. For someone who had graduated as top kunoichi from the academy, she sure was dumb sometimes. But that was over 4 years ago. Things change, and apparently she had changed for the worse. She held her chest as she remembered what happened 3 weeks ago clearly. No, don't think about it. Just go fix it. She cursed herself. How the hell could she forget about Naruto for 3 straight weeks, and then she hadn't even remembered that it was his birthday? Well, the best time to make up with someone was on their best day, right? Now that she thought about it, she never remembered Naruto ever doing anything for his birthday. Actually, she never remembered seeing him on his birthdays, unless they were on a mission. The one time she had seen him on his birthday, 2 years ago, he hadn't spoken a word to anyone. Sakura had thought it was him trying to grow up and be more mature. It turned out to be a one-day thing, as he went right back to his loud, obnoxious self the next day. Her mind began to rummage through the past that she was secretly trying to lock away. The moments she shared with Team 7 kept her waking up every day in the past. Then it was the thought of Naruto bringing back what she had lost. Her heart and the boy that took it with him. She had begged and pleaded with Naruto, cried in his arms, and even resorted to giving up. But Naruto kept saying how he would get him back, how he would bring Sasuke back, and things would go back to the way they used to. She had known all along that they couldn't go back. Life back then was that of a Genin's, still fresh and happy, learning new things and not really having much to care about. It was when their team was at its strongest. But those days were over. Far over. She just didn't have the heart to tell Naruto that. To her, he was still the goofy Genin from years ago that she used to beat for the hell of it. She never thought to take time and see just mature the blonde had truly gotten. Arriving at his apartment a little before the sun set, she sighed. The old apartment needed remolding badly. She didn't think it changed once since it was built. The roof was missing shingles. The paint was chipping and faded almost everywhere. It looked more like a slum than an apartment. Carefully walking up the step, she took note of how the boards groaned, and one even cracked. Sakura knew she didn't weigh an ounce over 115 pounds, so the stairs were definitely in bad condition. How can he live in a place like this? Standing in front of his apartment door now, she realized she hadn't thought of much to say. Taking a few seconds, she began to ponder it. However, realizing who exactly she was pondering about threw it all to the wind. Naruto wouldn't care whether she had some type of grand layout speech or not. He'd probably just give her that big goofy grin of his and say that he hadn't really noticed in the first place. The small thought brought a comical smirk to the pink-haired teen's face, and she knocked on the door. After several seconds, there was no sound. As she prepared to knock again, a thump was heard, shuffling, and a small thud of something hitting the floor. Heavy footsteps approached the door, and Sakura thought about running for a second, only to have the door swing open. Naruto gazed out at her, eyes set stoically in what would have been a glare if his face showed any emotion. Taken back by the completely neutral look, Sakura stood in silence for a second. Naruto was wearing a white t-shirt with the orange swirl of the Uzumaki symbol on the front. He still had his black pants on. Hey, Naruto, happy birthday. The silence wasn't broken, but Sakura's breath drew short. Naruto's eyes flickered red for a split second, but his expression never changed. Instead, he promptly closed the door in her face. The hell? What was that about? Hey, you fucking jerk! Open the goddamn door. What the hell was that for anyway? Once again, the door opened, but slowly this time. Naruto stood with the same expression, but wearing his orange jacket. It was open, still showing that he had the same t-shirt on. Sorry, I wasn't properly dressed, he stated calmly. Sakura rose an eyebrow. All he did was throw on a jacket. Baka. Well, are you going to let me in? I wasn't, he said just as calmly as before. However, he moved to the side, opening the door completely for her. Sakura huffed and entered the apartment. To her surprise, she saw what she hadn't expected. In Naruto, what's with all these sake bottles? It wasn't just sake. Beer bottles, vodka, and all other sorts of poisons were scattered around the apartment. Don't worry, I didn't drink it all. I have some in the fridge if you want something. He walked over to the kitchen, Sakura slowly walking behind him, still looking around at the dozens of bottles scattered around. And no, I don't drink, you know that. Naruto stopped as he pulled 2 bottles of New Amsterdam out the fridge. Oh, he mumbled and put the 2 back up. Since when did you drink it all, let alone all this heavy stuff? Sakura asked incredulously as she picked up an extra-large bottle of Smirnoff. Started about 2 weeks ago when I found out I can't get drunk. His calm voice sent shivers down Sakura's spine. It wasn't a voice she was used to hearing, nor did she want to get used to. It wasn't cold, but it held none of the warmth that she was so used to hearing from the blonde shinobi. You can't get drunk? Not easily. It'll take about 10 of those and a few of these to do the job. Naruto replied, chugging Corona. What the hell is he doing to himself? She thought sadly. So what did you want? I hope you didn't just come to say happy birthday. Sakura flinched. No matter how evenly he spoke, the way that sentence sounded was harsh. I came to apologize for not seeing about you when you brought Sasuke-kun back. Naruto froze up. His eyes were closed. To Sakura, it looked like he was asleep, but then she noticed the beer begin to boil. In Naruto. Naruto took a deep breath. The liquid stopped boiling, and he opened his eyes. Sorry about that. He said nothing more, instead opting to turn around and toss the beer into the garbage. Going to his refrigerator, he grabbed one of the bottles of New Amsterdam that he had originally been getting. You sure you don't want anything? I got coolers if you don't want anything strong. Naruto, stop it, Sakura yelled out. Naruto once again paused, fridge wide open. After a few seconds, he closed the fridge bottle in hand. Well, you could always just taste something and see what you like. I got Dash. A slap sounded. Sakura stood in front of the blonde, hands still outstretched from her action and tears in her eyes. Naruto's gaze no longer remained neutral. He still faced towards the side from the impact, but his eyes were narrowed. Slowly gazing back at her, he made Sakura's heart skip. They were soulless. Nothing was there. They were cold, blue glaciers in what was supposed to be the summer ocean. The area around his eyes were dry, and seemed like nothing moist would touch it ever again. Sakura, explain to me. Explain to me everything that possessed you to do it. His voice was darker, more edged. You can't do this, Naruto. Don't kill yourself by drinking Dash. That's not what I'm talking about. Sakura swallowed hard, unintentionally taking a step back. What do you mean then? Explain to me everything that possessed you to come crying to me, to beg me to bring Sasuke back. Explain to me everything that possessed you to sit by his side in the hospital not once, but twice, and to never think about seeing me once. Explain to me everything that possessed you to follow me that day, to lie in my face saying that you loved me. Explain to me everything that possessed you to almost kill Sasuke, but pull back at the last second. Explain to me everything that possessed you to come here today, slap me, and spray bullshit about how you don't want me to kill myself drinking, when you and I both know that you wouldn't give a damn one way or the other. Teach, that's not true, Dash. That's not what I asked you. I said explain to me. Sakura was shaking. Naruto hadn't once rose his voice, but the ferocity behind each word, the coldness in his eyes, they made him the most dangerous thing on the planet to her. This wasn't the blonde-haired teen she had grown up with. This wasn't the loud shinobi she had come to depend on. This was a nameless being, someone with no reserves, no emotions, and nothing that indicated that there once was. Only the darkening, wicked mind that was demanding answers for these overly valid questions. I don't know. That's a lie, Sakura. I don't need any more bullshit. I'm neck deep in it already. Now explain to me. In Naruto, I'm sorry. She was starting to cry. Naruto didn't falter, his glare still on her as she backed up into a wall. Didn't ask for your apology either. Now explain to me. Start from the beginning. Sakura's mind was spinning. Where was the real Naruto? This was a joke, right? Some cruel, twisted joke that her mind was playing on her. Maybe Ino had put her into a jinjutsu? No, this was far too real. She wouldn't be waking up at some point. Naruto wouldn't be laughing and saying, I fooled ya, huh, Sakura-chan? She wouldn't be getting away from his froze glare either. Not until she answered his questions. I cried to you because we lost Sasuke-kun. Lie. What? Sakura was about to completely break down. That was the truth. She had cried to Naruto that day to bring Sasuke back. You heard me. You didn't cry because we lost Sasuke. You cried because you lost Sasuke. You didn't care how I felt. Hell, if it was me that would have left the village, you wouldn't have cried begging Sasuke to bring me back. But Dash. Don't care. Next question. Sakura held her chest. Her eyes were blurring. I sat by his side because he was my friend. You can't hate me for trying to be there for him. 1. I never said I hate you, Sakura. You should know by now that that's damn near impossible for me. 2. That's a lie too. There were plenty of other reasons why you stayed with him. But that's not my concern right now either. You stayed by his side as long as you could. You said you did it because he was your friend. Well, Sakura, thanks for putting me in the position as fodder, because I was in the hospital on many different occasions, the first noticeably significant time being when your precious Sasuke put 2 Chidoras into my body. I vaguely remember you coming to see me wrapped up like a mummy only to ask what had happened to the Uchiha. After that, I didn't hear from you until I was out of the hospital, and the first thing you say is that we're going to go after Sasuke together. Then when I bring him back this time, you take him from me, not even a glance to see how I'm doing. You were too busy rushing him to the hospital, not seeing the amount of blood spraying from my side and my chest. By the way, that lightning blade of his cut one of my lungs in half. Thanks for asking. Not one tear, Not one little wisp of sympathy for the person who technically died on that mission. No, just for the lone so-called Avenger that never gave a damn about anyone. Sasuke-kun does care dash. And the first thing that comes out your mouth is about Sasuke. Done with that one. Next question. Naruto's voice had slowly begun to rise, but he tried to keep his calm stature. Sakura wiped tears away. Naruto was right. He was putting everything in perspective, and she was realizing just how much of a bane to him she was. She had finally broke him. She could only wonder how he put up with her for so long, and now she dreaded answering any more questions. She didn't want to see the truth. She didn't want to see how she truly looked in the mirror. She didn't want to see Naruto like this anymore. Please, Naruto, I'm sorry for everything. I don't want apologies. They mean absolutely nothing at all to me. Besides, apologies aren't shit if you don't mean them, and if they don't hold enough significance to what is being asked forgiveness for. Now, the next question. This question she couldn't answer. The reason she told Naruto to not go after Sasuke anymore. The reason she had told him she loved him. I didn't want to see you hurt anymore. That's a partial lie. It was the one point where you actually started caring about me. But there was still hidden meaning behind it, wasn't there? You didn't want Sasuke to kill me. You thought I was still too weak, and that if we fought, he would have killed me, and then he would have never been able to come back to the village. You knew I loved you. That's why you told me that you loved me. You knew that I would do whatever you wanted because of the way I felt. Newsflash, I'm not stupid. I can see through all your bullshit and snobbery. Even if the reason wasn't because you thought Sasuke could kill me, it was all about him. I don't care for the rest of these damn questions. This should be enough. The one reason that all of these have in common all come back full circle. You have always and probably always will only love one person. That's Sasuke. You never loved me, and you never actually cared enough to wonder if I was okay with everything or not. You knew I loved you, but decided to try to use that against me instead of actually give shot at what could have been. So as a long, tired tale comes to an end, this forgotten, forsaken, fool of a person only has one finally smart thing to say. Sakura looked at his eyes again. His voice had calmed down, and he was back to neutral. He walked out the kitchen, Sakura following behind quickly. He opened his front door and stood out the way. Goodbye, Sakura. Sakura finally broke down. She dropped to her knees in front of the door, the cold October wind blowing in over her. There were no words spoken anymore. She cried for almost a half hour, Naruto never moving from his spot of holding the door open. In Naruto, I'm sorry. She slowly stood up, seeming to limp out the door. I'm so sorry. She called through sobs. He watched as she walked down the stairs and away from the apartment. No, you're not. Naruto. His eyes didn't widen. He had seen her coming up from the opposite road. What do you want, Ino? Can I talk to you? Naruto wasn't in the mood for any more talks, but let her in anyway. Her initial reaction was much like that of Sakura's, asking when he started drinking and why such heavy drinks. Then it took a turn. Naruto, about 3 weeks ago dash. Save it. You just so happened to come by at the time, so you did what any other person would have done. No, I followed you. Through your shunshin. For the first time, Naruto's eyes widened. And why would you do that? Because I was worried about you. I'm your friend. Since when? Naruto hadn't actually meant to say it aloud. However, since he had, he didn't regret it. Ino looked down sadly. When had she been a friend to him? When had she found the time to try to be something more than an associate that knew of him? Why was she trying so hard now? Meza. Please don't do that. I've had enough of that shit today. His voice lowered. Naruto, I know I haven't been a good friend, or much of a friend at all for that matter, but I still don't like seeing you hurt. I want to be your friend, even if just to see you smile again. Naruto looked away. Ino was saying weird things, but they were working. Technically, you've been a better friend than either Sakura or Sasuke. Want a drink? No, you know what? Sure, why not? You only live once. She followed him to the kitchen, catching a small grin form on his lips at her acceptance of his offer to drink. Grabbing cups, he opened the bottle of New Amsterdam that was already sitting out on the counter. Ino looked at the clear liquid, a small look of hesitance appearing. Naruto poured the drinks and handed her a cup. Aren't you supposed to juice this or something? She asked, smelling the strong liquor. That's what coolers are for. Naruto upped the cup and slammed it down on the counter, wiping his lips. Ino shrugged and followed suit, almost spitting it back out. She gagged on the extremely strong alcohol. It burned her throat immensely, spreading down to her chest, and made her eyes water. As the last of the acid went down, she breathed in heavily, fanning herself as she began to turn red. What the hell is that stuff, Lava? She called, running to the sink and putting her head under the faucet as she guzzled down water. Hey, I like this stuff. This isn't even the strongest thing I've got. Naruto chuckled, seeing her reaction to the drink. He paused for a second. He hadn't laughed in a while. For a split second, he was grateful for Ino coming over, but then remembered her purpose. So, what else did you need to talk about? Ino remained under the faucet for a bit longer before turning it off and grabbing a paper towel to wipe her mouth. That can wait. Care to tell me what Forehead was doing here? Naruto looked down. She wished me a happy birthday. He looked back up when he found Ino standing right in front of him, arms folded and leveling the same glare he had been when Sakura first showed up at the door. Explain. Naruto may have been in a bad mood, but he knew Ino was one of the pushiest girls he'd ever met. Trying to hide anything from her was like trying to take a cub from a lion. With a sigh, he explained everything that went down just moments before she showed up. To his surprise, Ino sat and listened intently, getting sad at parts that made him sad and angry at parts that had pissed him off. In general, he hadn't expected her to actually feel the way he did. He was half expecting something along the lines of, well, you're a loud-mouthed idiot, or Sasuke-kun is a great person. How come you can't see that too? He never expected. Those bastards. I never thought they had been treating you like that the entire time. Just who the hell do they think they are? Naruto looked quizzically at the girl he had chalked up to be almost as bad as Sakura as she rambled about how stupid pink and black-haired bastards were. Watching her, he began to get lightheaded. Her voice was starting to fade out. The next thing he knew, blackness had overtaken him. Ino stopped her rant as the sunny-haired Shinobi collapsed forward on top of her. And Naruto, are you okay? She wiggled herself from under him, then turned him over. His breathing was heavy and his face was red. She felt his head and pulled it away fast. He was burning up. He has a fever, but I couldn't tell at first. What do I do? She wanted to pick him up and run him to the hospital, but a crash of thunder outside told her that that would only make matters worse. Thinking quickly, she ran to his bedroom and pulled off the comforter, quickly running back to the kitchen. As fast and as gently as she could, she wrapped him up to his head and tried to pick him. Grunting at his weight, she got him over her shoulder. She proceeded to take him back to his room, stumbling over several bottles of who knows what, finally reaching her destination and laying him on the bed. Looking at the bottles around the bed, she sighed in disgust. I wouldn't be surprised if he's suffering from alcohol poisoning. Ino sighed as she sat on the edge of the bed next to him. Seeing the distraught look on his face, it reminded her of the day when he had brought Sasuke back to the village. Not wanting to see his face like that, she got up and went into his washroom. Ironically, it was the cleanest place in the entire apartment. She easily found a face towel and grabbed the bucket from under the sink. She filled it with hot water and took it back to his room. His breathing had evened out and he seemed to be sleeping peacefully, but his face remained red and she could feel that he was still burning up. Wringing out the rag, she gently began to dab at the sweat that formed on his forehead. Who would have guessed that I would be here taking care of you like this? She dipped the rag again and wrung it out, placing it on his forehead. Looking outside again, she saw that it had started pouring down. She got up and closed the curtain, plunging the room into semi-darkness. Taking her post again on the edge of the bed, a tired sigh escaped her lips. Man, what a long day, and I can't even go home. Well, I couldn't leave Naruto here alone like this anyway. Her gaze caught the sleeping teen again. He wasn't bad looking. Not bad in the least, actually. Very handsome. Ino shook her head and blushed. I need to stop before I end up looking like Hinata. I'm not a stalker. I'm not a stalker. Ino loved Hinata, but the way she followed Naruto was a little on the illegal side. She blushed again as she realized that she was comparing the feelings she had for the blonde with the feelings Hinata had. There was no way she was going to go that far, yet maybe, but as of now she knew nothing of the person lying next to her. Needing to clear her mind, she got up and walked into the living room, plopping down on the couch. I'll just take a quick nap. Then I'll check on him again. I'll kveek up. Boom! A crash of thunder jolted Ino up from her sleep. She looked around, finding herself in a pitch-black room. Shit, I overslept. She cursed as she stumbled up from the couch. Catching a glimpse of a clock, she saw that it was 3 a.m., briskly walking with an outstretched hand to find some source of light. She tripped over an empty bottle. Ow! She groaned, rubbing her sore hip. Not feeling like taking another tumble, she began to crawl towards the direction she knew was Naruto's room. Feeling the doorway, she saw moonlight drifting in from the curtain-covered window. Finding it safe, she stood up and walked over to the bed, clicking on the nightstand table lamp. She removed the cold rag from his head and proceeded to replace the water in the bucket. Going back in his room, Ino paused. The bucket of water dropped from her hand, spraying water all over the place. Naruto! She cried as she ran to his side. There was no movement. Naruto had stopped breathing. Chapter 3, Reversed at Dawn. 3 years and 7 months. That's how long it took for him to finally get strong enough for this moment. The day that he would face Sasuke for the last time. Either he was going to bring Sasuke back to the village, or they were both going to die fighting. His heart, his mind, all of it was taken from his insides and was on full display to the world. The showcaser was Sakura. Sasuke was the bidder. This final day would decide the future of the original Team 7. Gokakyo no Jutsu. Sasuke called, lunging to the side and firing a giant fireball. Tatsumaki Rindan. Naruto shouted back, spinning as the large attack covered him. A giant sphere of wind blew the flames away. Sasuke was above him, sword poised to strike and sparking. Not fast enough to completely dodge, Naruto was cut in the side. His breathing hitched as he felt the metal slide through him like butter. As Sasuke turned for another strike, Naruto made a clone, effectively stopping the attack. Rasengan, Naruto formed a small one and sent Sasuke back several feet. Is that all you got, dope? You wish. Come on, dash. Naruto, Ino cried out as she leaned over him, pumping his chest to get him to take in air. Breathe, damn you. Her mind was racing. Even if he was suffering from alcohol poisoning, to just stop breathing in the middle of the night wasn't natural. The thought was revolting. Naruto and dead could never be in the same sentence. It had never occurred to her. It never occurred that Naruto, the hope of Konoha and savior of the Shinobi nations, was human enough to die. Of course, she had never compared him to the demon inside of him. But he had accomplished feats that even some Hokages could only dream of. Why am I so useless? Even Sakura would have been able to help you in this situation. Ino's thoughts were making her weaker. Every push to his chest slowed down. Almost losing her resolve, she flared through hand signs until her hands began to glow green. Trying again, she began to pump his chest. Every push and every lack of response brought another tear to her eyes. She was never one for medical ninjutsu, and now she cursed herself for it. Enko had even told her to get some help from Hinata or Sakura for it, but Ino didn't listen. She had thought that if she was strong enough to just beat the opponent to a bloody pulp before anyone got hurt, then they wouldn't need a medic. Her one-track mind hadn't figured for accidents inside the village. Once again losing resolve, let out a few tears, laying her head in the motionless chest of Naruto. Don't give up. The voice in her head forced her to think. Why would he just stop breathing in the middle of the night? He was going through stress, heavy mental implications, and with the alcohol, heavy physical strain as well. Ino knew the explanation then, but would try her hardest on her own first. Making one last hand sign, she forced more chakra into her hands. Pumping his chest for the last time, she grit her teeth. You bastard, wake the hell up. I won't let you leave everyone like this. What would Anata say? What would Tsunade do? What would I do? Ino continued at it for several minutes, not believing that it was still futile. Her hands had already stopped the chakra flow, but Ino didn't stop pumping his chest. It was beyond her now. Why Naruto? Why don't you? She thought angrily. Now she only had one choice. The most dangerous option in this situation. All that was left was to physically enter him through her Shinten Shin. Naruto was dying. He wasn't going to wake up. Because he didn't want to. His lung was cut. He knew because every breath he took forced blood from his mouth and sighed. But it was a minor energy, for him at least. It would become fatal if he ran out of chakra, but he had plenty to spare. Facing off against Sasuke again, he saw the sadistic smile on his face. The Manjikyu Sharingan spinning wildly in his eyes. He was damn near unscathed as Naruto stood before him with 7 tails. He hadn't realized that they both had become such monsters, but it was clear now. Clear that they both were far gone, past what either of them had ever dreamed of as kids. Feeling his chakra slipping just a bit in his 7-tailed form, he reverted, going sage mode again. That trick is boring me, dope. Grow some more tails. One more wouldn't hurt. Sasuke emphasized his point by flashing in front of Naruto, hand outstretched with the Chidori. Naruto merely sidestepped and slammed his knee into Sasuke's gut. As expected, Sasuke was replaced with a log that instantly burst to pieces from the force of Naruto's attack. Back flipping out the way, just as a fireball slammed into the ground in front of him, Naruto flared one hand sign and created 20 clones. Each were already forming Raisengans. Before the attacks were fully complete, Sasuke had flashed through half of them, cutting them down with his sparking sword. Naruto waited, watching for the perfect opportunity to launch another attack. The remaining clones spread out in a circle around Sasuke. Udama Rasengan! They all shouted in unison, smashing the large attacks into where Sasuke should have been standing. Naruto once again knew the attacks would have no effect outside of slowing the raven-haired monster down, but it was better than nothing. The cloud of smoke created from the attack and the dispersing clones filled the area. The chakra, he felt, let him know what Sasuke had done, and it was exactly what he had counted on. Ultimate defense, my ass. Naruto thought as he saw the large flame of Susanoo. He kept his Toad Sage form. However, red chakra exploded around him in a flame again. All 9 tails formed behind him. Vanishing in the Hiraishin, Naruto appeared in the clouds, the glow of Susanoo far below him. Hand outstretched above his head, he formed his most powerful attack. This time, it spun in pure silver, the demonic chakra and natural energies of the earth giving it a moon-like glow. Futon, Raisin Shuriken. Naruto's attack blasted from the clouds as he hurled the village-sized attack down towards the ground. The clouds parted and wind dispersed out in every direction, trembling the earth and forming tornadoes as it crashed into Sasuke's ultimate defense. The attack only slowed for a bit before overtaking the beast, shattering it and sending Sasuke into shock. Then it all paused. It can't happen like this. If I bring Sasuke back, everything will go straight to hell. Naruto closed his eyes as the clouds around him spun and changed shape until he was standing on the ground again. Gokakyo no Jutsu. Sasuke called, lunging to the side and firing a giant fireball. Tatsumaki Rindan. Naruto shouted back, spinning as the large attack covered him. A giant sphere of wind blew the flames away. Sasuke was above him, sword poised to strike and sparking. Not fast enough to completely dodge, Naruto was cut in the side. His breathing hitched as he felt the metal slide through him like butter. As Sasuke turned for another strike, Naruto made a clone, effectively stopping the attack. Rasengan. Naruto formed a small one and sent Sasuke back several feet. Is that all you got, dope? You wish. Come on, Dash. Ino had found a small folding chair in his closet. It would have to do with what she was planning. Setting it as close to his bed as she could, she sat down next to him, hands together in the form of a triangle. She paused. All her thoughts drifted back to the Naruto that she once knew. The Naruto that had risked his life on countless occasions to save the village. The one that had went to the ends of the earth, to the pits of hell, to the gates of heaven, just to find himself back in a village that would never truly welcome him home. And he did it all for them, for the people who respected him but never loved him, including Sakura. But it was her turn now. For a change, it would be Naruto needing saving, and from the most unlikely of sources. Ino would save him, and hopefully rectify her own bitterness. The bitterness of knowing that she had never actually loved him or even cared for him much until recently. The bitterness of knowing that her past was covered in just as many thorns as Sakura's. Maybe even more. Shin. Ino whispered before her thoughts could wander further. Her body slumped forward as her soul blew in the wind of Naruto's mind. The travel always seemed unreal. Every time, she would feel herself flying through a colorless vortex, arms outstretched as the barriers of the person's mind collapsed one after another before her forceful entry. However, this time she felt herself falling into a dark abyss, the signs of barriers already destroyed before her. Entrance to Naruto's mind was scary, and even worse, too easy. Flashes of memories surrounded her as she fell, showing his past, his hidden-most secrets and emotions. It was all on full display. The edges looked jagged, as if they were shattered. The scary part was that most of the memories that lingered long enough for her to catch a glimpse of had been recent. Her descent came to an abrupt halt as she hit the ground hard. Her eyes closed as pain shot through her body, but soon faded due to her setting. In her mind, the pain she felt would be real, but not everlasting. That is, if she didn't die. The pain she did feel faded quickly. However, death was what it was. Absolute. In Naruto, she called shakily, more afraid of what he would say about her entering his mind than the condition his mind was in. Standing up, she found herself in a large field, the sky orange as the sky began to set. The signs of war was all around her. Bodies were strewn all throughout the area, and craters from obviously powerful jutsus gave the look of the moon's surface rather than a once flower-filled environment. The blurred faces let her know that she was in a memory. The person usually never remembered details of many and only of the focus. So when she saw Naruto kneeling in front of Sasuke, she wasn't too surprised. She stood still for a moment, only observing as Naruto suddenly lost his red glow and began to glow with a faint white chakra. She knew the form as Toad Sage Mode. Then Sasuke attacked only to be stopped in his tracks as Naruto kneed him. Ino smiled for a split second, but saw that the Sasuke had used substitution. Before she knew what was happening, Naruto had jumped back from a large fireball, but Sasuke had slashed his front. It was weird. It seemed like Naruto had let him do it. Is that it? You've finally given up? Sasuke spoke, however his voice seemed different. She could hear Naruto's voice mixed in with it. This wasn't part of the memory. Naruto was doing it himself. Of course I haven't given up. Naruto's voice was flat, much like it was when he spoke to Sakura and Ino in the real world. I'm just going to die fighting this time. I won't just lie down and give up dash. Like you did in the real world, Ino shouted, tears in her eyes and fist clenched so hard her knuckles were white. The instant Naruto heard her, the scene faded to black. His wound vanished and showed him standing in his normal form. Ino, what the hell are you doing here? He shouted, more in confusion than in shock or anger. The blackness around them tinted purple, visibly showing his confusion. Ino would have giggled at it if it weren't for the fact that she knew Naruto was about to blow his top. I used Shin on you, she stated bluntly. The blackness solidified. Naruto's face lit for a second before returning to his neutral expression. However, he slowly looked down as he took in what Ino had done. You invaded my mind? You saw what just happened? He more or less growled out slowly. It was threatening, even to himself. Ino took a gulp and unconsciously took a step back. His voice held a natural edge that just didn't sit well with her. It sent a chill over her skin, raising goosebumps. She knew she was in deep shit now, and if Naruto got mad at her in his mind, it could be bad. Very bad. I did it for you. You're not breathing in the real world, but you knew that, didn't you? Naruto flinched, but held his spot. You have no right to be here. Is that why you really want to come to my house? To catch me at my most vulnerable? To hurt me too, like you used to? Now, it was Ino's turn to flinch. She had hurt him when they were younger, throwing insults along with stones right aside the other children, but she guessed that by the lack of faith she had in him, whenever he went in a battle had done something as well. It was a small realization that she had thought could be forgiven and forgotten, but it was much more to Naruto. Naruto, I would never hurt you anymore. I would never take advantage of you. I just want you to be happy again. She still held back tears, but it was getting harder. Her voice had risen to a pitch, as if pleading. Naruto finally looked up at her, eyes burning red. You know better than any of them. Don't come acting like you care now. He screamed. Don't get mad at me, because you're the one who can't face real life. Ino yelled back, Naruto's comment snapping something in her as well. A tear rolled down her cheek as she glared angrily at the blonde, raging blue eyes meeting shocked crimson. You're lying in your bed right now, dying, and I came here to try and save you. But I shouldn't have, seeing as you never wanted to be saved in the first place. You were about to let that Sasuke kill you, so you wouldn't have to face reality anymore, right? So you can say that you died fighting. Well, too damn bad. You didn't fight. You let him have his way. You just stepped aside and let him and Sakura go. You didn't even run after them. She stopped, hugging herself. Well, he said, fist clenched just as hers had been. Is that all? Is that all the spoiled princess has to say? I never ran after them. So what? She wanted him, and apparently he wanted her. It's none of my damn business. And don't you come into my mind trying to sound like some type of saint. You came to the gate with hopes of grabbing Sasuke, all to yourself. You're no better than Sakura, remember? As soon as the words left his mouth, a hand soared across his face. Building anxiety in the air suddenly faded. Ino stood in front of Naruto, tears all over her face and biting her lip. Then she slapped him again with her other hand. Don't you ever say that again, she cried out, sending her other hand to slap him once more. However, he caught her wrist. Ino, he only spoke her name. It was all he could do. He thought that she would have been brooding, seeing that everything he said was true. Instead, she blows up on him when he compares her with Sakura. It was completely confusing. I'm sorry. Fuck you, she yelled, crying even harder. Sorry for what? For telling the truth? Well, you're right, Naruto. You're 100% pure D. Fucking right. I'm no better than Sakura. I've never been. It took me all this time and everything that happened to realize that I'm blind. If I would have made it to him first, I would have let him strip me in front of all of you and let him do whatever the hell he wanted to me without a second thought. I would have cursed you, Sakura, and anybody else that tried to stop me. If I would have made it to him first, I would have never thought of the pain you're in, and I wouldn't have cared once I found out. I would have never have seen the way Sasuke never even looks at me, Sakura, how all he talks about is restoring his clan, and how he makes me bow to him and call him Sasuke Dano. I would have never have found you here and tried to save you. You would be dead, and I would be broken, even more broken than I am now. Stop. Fuck you, she yelled again and struggled against his grip. Fuck you and go to hell. Why should I stop? You're dying because you lost Sakura, and now I realize how lost I am without running after Sasuke. Go ahead and die for all I care, and let me die with you. The world will be better off without us hypocrites polluting the fucking earth. She stopped struggling, opting to just lean against him since her strength was spent. He didn't move either, just let her calm down and thinking to himself. Funny how that worked. Since Ino could hear everything he was thinking, she was too upset to care. His thoughts were all along the lines of how Ino was right, and how he shouldn't have pushed her that far. It was beyond that point now, though, and he couldn't go back. Neither could she take back all the things she did in the past. Look, there's no need to think about what-ifs, she began, because the what-ifs didn't happen. We can only keep moving forward and hopefully make better decisions than we have lately. I understand, but that doesn't make it any easier. knowing that I screwed up my chances with Sakura, and now seeing just how confused I was to have kept running after her in the first place. I wasted the last few years of my life trying to make her happy, and this is what I get in the end. Ino leaned into his chest a bit more. It was just a gesture of how tired she was. But her eyes wandered finally. "In Naruto, why is your mind all black?" He looked around and saw that she was right. They were standing in pure darkness. "I don't know. It never looked like this before. You said I had stopped breathing, right? How long ago was that?" "I don't know. I woke up at 3, but... Oh my god. Naruto, you might have died." Naruto's sweat dropped. That's not good. Maybe we should wake up now." Ino nodded, releasing herself from him and closing her eyes. She felt herself skyrocketing upwards, spinning out of the darkness and into the path that connected their souls. Several seconds later, she entered her body. She leaned up, cracking her back from the lack of movement over whatever amount of time that had elapsed while she was in Naruto's mind. Glancing at the clock, her fears were confirmed. It was 7 in the morning. The bed's movements crushed her fears, however. She sighed in relief and smiled as Naruto slowly yawned and leaned up, sky-blue eyes sparkling from the first rays of the morning sun. "Don't scare me like that again, Baka," Ino scolded politely. Naruto jumped and looked at her confused. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Naruto, what's the matter with you?" "Stay back. Who are you?" he yelled in a panic, his voice seeming a bit more high-pitched than normal. "Naruto." Ino's chest started to ache as only one word crossed her mind. Amnesia. Frustration was overtaking her mind. The day had barely even started, and it was her day off, mind you, but things felt like they were going to hell. On another note, she finally got Sasuke to go out with her for once, even if it was just to go see her surrogate mother. Sakura walked in melancholy, trying to forget the events of the previous day and focusing all her attention on what she hoped would be good news. They were on their way to the hospital to see if Sakura and Sasuke had finally done what he wanted: get her pregnant. "Restoring my clan is priority, mine and yours." She remembered him saying that the next day after his return to the village. Sakura was beyond elated to know that he considered her in that regard, and it took all her medical training not to slam into a wall with a nosebleed as mental images of their first night together flooded her head. Other than the countless times that they had already had sex, Sakura didn't feel everything that she thought she would from the raven-haired teen. Like at the moment, though they were on their way to hospital together, Sasuke walked right in front of her as if she were some child to be led through a crowded street. Then, as many times as she had asked him to just walk around the village with her, he had always promptly refused. But at 8 in the morning, she asked if he would like to go with her to see if she had finally gotten pregnant, and he's out the door before she had even finished dressing. For the sake of her own personal morality, she chalked it all up to his sexy, cool, and silent persona. But even that was starting to wear thin by the second. Unintentionally, she ended up thinking of Naruto again. I bet he would walk around the village with me. Crap. Hold it together, girl. You're with Sasuke, and he's the one that asked you out. This is what you always wanted, right? Right? Sakura. Sakura began, but stopped as she walked right into Sasuke. "What was that?" he asked in his usual monotone. I mean Sasuke-dano. "HN," was her reply as he turned ahead and kept walking. She looked down with her hands behind her back, fidgeting. I just wanted to tell you I love you." "Oh, okay." Sasuke didn't stutter or look back. Her heart sank a little as she tried to pry a little more. "Well, aren't you going to say it too?" He only slowed a bit, but still never looked at her. After several more seconds of silence, she began to drop the thought altogether. "Me too." That moment put Sakura on the spot. She faltered in her step, only to have Sasuke stop and glare at her. Is saying I love you that much of a problem for him? She wondered. Sasuke sighed and scratched his head. "If you want, we can come back later." His tone held ice to it, telling her that he wasn't too happy with the statement. "And no, it's fine. I am sorry." They continued the rest of the trip in silence, Sakura contemplating when Sasuke had become so distant. He always was. The day took its worst turn for Sakura as they sat in front of Tsunade, however. Tension filled the room, and apprehension took up the forefronts of Tsunade's features. Well, she started. Though she wasn't at all happy about the circumstances that left Naruto the way he was, she was still Hokage and had acted. She would have loved to put the Uchiha behind bars for a few millenniums or so, but the council would only allow a slap on the wrist for the traitor. I have some very bad news. Bad news left her lips in a way that shouted that she didn't care really. Sakura was still her apprentice, and even though she had made some very dumb decisions, she wouldn't do anything to her. Tsunade would let her fall on her own and rise on her own if she could. She's still not pregnant? Sasuke asked, a bit of anger showing at the last word. A quick glance in Sakura's direction had her squirming in her seat. I'm afraid not, but that's not the bad news. Tsunade continued. What's wrong, sensei? Sakura asked, fearing whatever news Tsunade was about to relay. It's been a while now, and since you haven't recovered from this, I'm positive it can't be fixed. However, I believe that when you were fighting Sasori during the Kazekage's retrieval mission, you were stabbed just alongside your bottom spine, right? Sakura slowly nodded, the fear etched in her face, showing she knew exactly where her master was going. Well, the nerves connected to your pelvis and other areas were affected. You were temporarily paralyzed from the waist down. I remember from your report. We didn't need to test you then, but from your pregnancy test now, I've determined that. Sakura broke down crying before Tsunade had even finished speaking. Sasuke's eyes narrowed as he too realized what was being said. You're infertile. Chapter 4. Until my last breath. I'm afraid there's absolutely nothing we can do. With your father being away from the village, you're the only one that can enter his mind and try to pull him back. It was around noon in Tsunade's office as she addressed Ino. Naruto only stared between the two, not comprehending anything that was going on. Ino held her head in frustration, tears threatening to fall. It had taken her all of an hour to chase Naruto out of his apartment and around the building before she had laid a hand on him. Then it took a little more time to subdue him and take him back into his room. There, she attempted to re-enter his mind to see what was wrong with him. Instead of the easy entry she had gotten earlier, she slammed right into the first of his mental walls. Try all she might, not even the first gate would budge, and she was forced out. At first, she had thought that his memory loss was because of his brain not having any blood pumped to it for a long period of time, but it couldn't have been just that if his mind had completely locked her out. It was a defense mechanism, a relapse. I tried already, Hokage-sama. I couldn't so much as even peek inside. She cried out. Wait, you can read people's minds? Okay, what am I thinking? Naruto asked eagerly, looking at Ino. Ino shot a look at Tsunade to calm her down right away. Upon revealing what Naruto had been going through, Tsunade had every mind to go after Sasuke and Sakura and making sure that they both were infertile. But when Ino begged her to just help Naruto, she reluctantly remained in her seat. You're thinking about ramen, Ino replied angrily. Thought Naruto seemed to ignore it. Yeah, that's awesome. Ino turned her attention back to Tsunade, seeing the sad glare in her eyes. She would bet all her life savings that Tsunade was thinking of so many ways to hurt Sasuke and Sakura, but due to the law and the damn council, her hands were tied for the most part. For Ino, all she could think of was how this was going to work. She knew that she couldn't just leave Naruto to himself, especially with no memories. The situation was completely unexpected. Hey, Ino, what were you doing in my apartment anyway? Wait, you said my name. Ino turned hard in her chair, making it groan against the floor as she did. Tsunade looked up as well, snapped out of her thoughts by Ino's sudden movement. Yeah, that's your name, right? Unless you changed it and didn't tell anyone. He chuckled. Ino almost jumped up and hugged him, and was about to until Tsunade asked a question. Naruto, what all do you remember? Ino instantly settled down, wanting to know the same as well. Naruto's eyes glazed over. I remember, seeing Ino and Sakura-chan playing together in the flower field. Ino's heart sank. He only remembers up till then. Tsunade saw the expression on Ino's face and smiled slightly to herself. Apparently, there was something going on in Ino's mind that even she couldn't comprehend yet. Ino, don't look so down. That means his memories are coming back, albeit slowly and from the looks of it, far from the past. But that means things are going to get worse before they get better. Ino whispered, only loud enough for the Hokage to hear her. Tsunade rose an eyebrow. How so? Well, thinking about it, his memories are going to be like reliving the past technically. Things only get worse for him from there, and I'm the cause of some of it. Hey, I can't hear you. And I'm not stupid. I'm not going to be reliving the past. Naruto shouted. Tsunade and Ino jumped from his outburst. Naruto had his arms crossed and a pout that they hadn't seen on him since he was a genin. Look at me. I know I'm not still an 8-year-old about to enter the academy. I just don't remember anything that happened past that point. Before Tsunade or Ino could say anything, Naruto had jumped up and ran out the office. Naruto, wait. Ino cried, running after him. Ino, stay with him. Don't let anything bad happen to him. Tsunade shouted after her. I won't, Ino called without looking back. I'm putting my faith in you, Tsunade added. This time Ino paused, a small blush crossing her face as she realized what her master was implying. She stopped speaking. It was time for her to take what she was thinking the previous night and evaluate it. Naruto had amnesia. She could easily go tell Hinata or leave it up to Tsunade. She could go home and forget about it all. She had already spoke with Naruto and cleared, or at least settled things between. At that moment, she knew if she went out that door after him, she would be admitting that there was something there that she wanted to be a part of, something that she wouldn't risk losing for the world, something that she would go to all lengths to achieve, something that was worth the pain and heartache that was sure to come from running after someone that was going to be sure to push her away for someone else. The world that was Naruto Uzumaki before he became a Namikaze, before he rescued Gaara, before the villagers cheered him at the Chunin exam stadiums, before he lost his love for Sakura. I'll stand by him until my last breath, Ino declared, eyes shining with all the emotions that spoke volumes to Tsunade. She was ready to move on, ready to leave Sasuke behind, ready to move on to a better life, ready to quit being the spoiled princess, pampered diva. She was ready to give real life a shot. One night wasn't enough for her to declare her undying love for him, but she was sure in hell willing to spend the rest of her life trying to figure out if it was. If it could be something for them in the future together. Even if it only led to a powerful friendship, she wouldn't give up until she had closure. It didn't take long for her to find out where he had went, though from the state he was in, she figured it was long enough for him to get some of his memories back. Slowing to a stride, she approached Naruto, sitting with his knees pulled to his chest on top of the Hokage monument. His head was down, and Ino could see his shoulders bobbing slightly. Crying. Ino wanted to go to him, to comfort him, to anything. She wanted to know what he was remembering, or how far his memories had gotten for him to cry. The scene also brought tears to her as well. It was just like when Naruto had brought Sasuke back. He was alone on the Hokage monument, and Ino was the only one there to comfort him. Things were different now. She'd do more than just let him cry on her shoulder. She'd be his support for whatever was going to happen from that point on. Naruto, she called out to him. The sobs instantly stopped, showing that he hadn't sensed her arrival. After several seconds of silence, Naruto slowly turned to face her. What do you want? He asked, but never looked her in the face. Instead, it seemed like he was facing the ground right in front of her feet. Ino didn't answer right away. She looked beyond him too, not wanting to see him in such a weak state. Instead, she looked over to the horizon, watching as the noon sun sat far above it. It wasn't as beautiful as a sunrise or a sunset, but it was still a beauty that ninjas didn't get a chance to appreciate. It reminded her of the Shinobi sitting several feet in front of her, hair as gold as the sun, eyes as blue as the skies, and completely unappreciated. How far have your memories gotten? She asked hesitantly, Naruto paused, still not looking at her. When we were assigned teams. A small pain hit her chest, and she held it instinctively. That meant that the memories of her insulting him and throwing things at him had all come back. She was surprised he was still speaking to her knowing that. I'm sorry. For what? Naruto asked as his gaze drifted back over the village. You threw stones at me just because people told you to. You never call me a demon or anything like that. The pain in his voice showed clearly at his last statement. He had found out about the demon that early? She thought sadly. Just like everyone else outside of Sakura, she had only found out when he had revealed it to them the day he was leaving to some island to completely absorb the nine-tailed demon's chakra. Alongside everyone else, she hadn't seen him as a demon. But she had also never thought about how his childhood had played out because of that one deterring fact. You don't seem like the same person that you were back then, but could you please just give me some space for now? I can't believe any of this, even Gigi. All time seemed to stop. Though his mind hadn't recovered up until the exact time, Naruto knew what had happened to the third Hokage. Seeing Tsunade as the new Hokage must have risen suspicions, which would also explain why he had left her office so suddenly. Then seeing her face right alongside the rest of the Hokages must have confirmed it. Naruto knew the third was no longer among them. I can't do that, Ino was saying until Naruto stood abruptly. It doesn't matter, he said before he puffed into smoke. Ino's eyes widened and she cursed herself. No matter his age, Naruto was always cunning and quick to use a shadow clone. Going into full panic mode, she shunshined to the bottom of the monument, trying her hardest to catch a glimpse of blonde hair through the bustling streets of early noon Konoha. Shit, where did he go? Naruto, don't give up on me. It was only a matter of time. She was smart enough to realize that. Smart enough to see that her world that she had created in her mind would never hold a happy ending. They were ninja. Happy endings weren't common, and she had set herself up for the biggest letdown of her life. That's exactly what sped through her mind as she watched the man she thought she loved walking in front of her towards the gates to the Uchiha compound. That morning was the nightmare she had been thinking of since hearing her sensei's declaration. They walked in silence, Sakura shedding silent tears as they walked back towards the Uchiha compound. Sasuke still held his stoic expression, though his anger was visible from the flaring of his nose. The sky still held dark cloud from the previous day's thunderstorms, and it fit her mood perfectly. The chill of the October wind once again bathed over her, making her shiver. Funny, it felt just like how Sasuke had looked at her as they left Tsunade's office. Just like how Naruto had sent her away. Just like her heart from falling upon realizations that she was far too blind to accept. It didn't take any time at all for Sasuke to begin what was obviously meant to happen. As soon as they walked into his room, he strode over to Sakura's side of the room, ripping open her drawers and tossing everything out of them. She had froze on the spot, eyes widening. Then she dropped to her knees, mind collapsing into the only thought she could process. He never loved me. Opening a storage scroll, Sasuke sealed all her clothes for her, which would be the only thing he ever did for her. Fist clenched tightly over the scroll, he turned and faced her, silently telling her to get up. She applied, standing on shaky legs as tears flooded her face. Her voice finally became audible. Why? Satoke-kun. Sasuke didn't care about the name any longer. Coming from her would have it mean absolutely nothing. You're smart, Sakura. You knew this would happen as soon as we left the Hokage's office. Close your mouth and start walking. He spoke evenly, scaring her to the core. He wasn't angry or happy. It was the tone he used when they were kids. No, please, Sasuke-kun. We can work this out. I love you so much. I don't want to lose you. You can get another woman impregnated, and I can still be your lover. Didn't any of those times mean anything to you? Don't you feel anything for me? Sasuke looked directly into her eyes. Her pleading, bloodshot eyes filled with what she thought was true love and passion. An everlasting passion for the person she would have died for. I would be lying if I said I didn't. Sakura's eyes lit up, her lips trembling from anxiousness. But I would be lying if I said I still do. There was a time when I did think of you intimately, but like I said before, restoring my clan is priority. Besides, me and you have one thing in common. He paused, allowing Sakura to absorb everything that was being said. Neither of us knew what true love was to begin with. I never loved you. Liked, occasionally, but never loved. Those were the final words spoken to her by the Uchiha before he put her on the opposite side of the Uchiha gates and locked them. Several things he said clicked in her mind. She was smart enough to see it coming. There were times that she knew 100% that he never loved her. Her mind, her constant lock on the past, and her unwavering determination prevented her from believing what she knew. It even prevented her from believing that Naruto was the person that she should have ran after. Yeah, she knew it the entire time, but since her childhood, her past, she had always wanted Sasuke. She had believed him to be the greatest thing to walk the Shinobi earth. And Naruto was just a dead last that would never amount to shit compared to Sasuke. The full circle collided with her, making her stumble as she wandered the village aimlessly. Sakura dropped to her knees, hugging herself tightly. She trembled and began to sniff. The past was over. She had no choice anymore. Sasuke was now forever gone from her life, and there wasn't anything she could do to change that. For what she had heard from Naruto the previous night, he was gone too. The life she had toyed with had led her to be alone in the world that she couldn't blame. She had forsaken herself, and the consequences rested solely on her shoulders. Manipulating Naruto's emotions, hurting him as bad as she did, all for the person that would turn around and throw her same emotions into the ground. I never loved you. Liked, occasionally, but never loved. Sasuke Uchiha had taken her heart. Naruto had brought it back. She had snatched it from him and given back to the same person who had stolen it. And now it was destroyed, messed up almost beyond repair. She knew it was far too cliché. She would spend her time chasing after her dream boy, while Naruto would chase after her. She would get the person she's chasing just to find out he wasn't what she had wanted. Sasuke would dump her, and then she would realize her feelings for Naruto, and they would live happily ever after. Cliché, only in fairy tales. Naruto had made it clear that he didn't want to be with her anymore, and he had every right to feel that way. She had willingly let him get to that point, hoping that Sasuke would prove to be the person she had always dreamed him to be. But reality was what it was. She had lost, dealing out all of her cards in a gamble. A game of chance that was rigged for her to fall. Oh God, how could I have been so foolish? So blind? What have I done to my life? What have I done to Naruto-kun? Mind and heart racing, she realized that once and for all, she was alone. Let me go back. Please, let me go back to when we were still genin. Let me go back to when Naruto first asked me on a date. I'll say yes, I promise. I'll treat him better, and I won't run after Sasuke anymore. I don't want to be alone. Kimi-sama, please. Take this away. Take this pain, my sorrow, my ignorance and arrogance, my lust, my heart. Take it all and lay it in Naruto's hands. The rain had started again, mixing with the blossom-haired teen's tears. She didn't move, instead staying on her knees, looking up into the sky. Her eyes were almost dead as Naruto's had been the night before. The rain was freezing cold, but she didn't even shiver. It was over. The meaning of everything she did was for Sasuke. Now it was all over. She would wake up with no purpose from that point on. She would wake up in the solidified future, forced to look back on the shattered past. Look back on the what-ifs and could-have-beens. Look back on the days when she used to say she loved Sasuke. Look back on the days when Naruto had proved that he would die for her. Naruto walked through the streets, bumping into people without caring. His memories were slowly but surely returning. They were already up to the point when they had faced off against Zabuza and Haku. Despair ran through his mind and veins. Knowing that he had amnesia only put him into a neutrality. He should have been as hyper as he was when he was kid, but all he could think about was what had happened to him for him to lose his memory in the first place. Why Ino had been the only one there when he woke up. Following his memories, He came to the only conclusion that would allow him to cope with the situation. Being oblivious to everything that had previously happened, Naruto's actions would rival that of a lamb marching into a den of lions. I need to find Sakura-chan. Chapter 5, When They Cry. The clouds that loomed over Konoha did not leave. No bright light shined down on the sole hope of the leaf as he sat in the small stand of Ichiraku's ramen. No small violin played as he sat, putting the pieces of his memory together. Even with the clouds, no rain poured to accompany his solemn mood. It was just a cold, bitter October day with a depressed Naruto sulking about the village. The villagers had watched as he walked with his hands in his pockets and head down, much how he did when he was little. This time he didn't feel any glares, though. It was as if the village had changed completely from what he remembered, but it didn't help his mood. He had went over to Sakura's place just to find that she had moved out. That was all he got out of the elder female Haruno, as she promptly shut the door in his face, mumbling about annoying teenagers and cold October winds. Afterwards, his only thoughts were to go drown himself in ramen. He had already told Ayam and Tucci the situation, and though they were both reluctant to believe at first, the look in his eyes told them otherwise. He didn't remember anything past returning to the village after the Zabuza mission. So far, the memories most current to him were pretty good. On the inside, he hoped that they would continue to be as such. He smiled when the villagers of Wave cheered him. It showed him that the villagers of his own village could have come to the conclusion that he wasn't the demon. But the memories were from when he was still 12, almost 13. "Hey, Nate-chan." He spoke low, voice sounding like a deep drawl. His gaze remained in the untouched bowl of ramen in front of him. Ayam looked up from stirring more ramen, casting a sorrowful look his way. Naruto's memory loss had come as shock to her, but under her father's orders, she refrained from telling him any of the events that had recently happened. Tucci had said that if his memories were coming back, then let them. Naruto would have to sort through them himself, especially the recent events. "How old am I?" Ayam frowned again. It was painful to see him like this. As long as she knew him, he was never as refined as this. After accepting, though not liking, the thought of him having amnesia, she thought for sure that he would act as hyper as ever. But that wasn't the case, and the blonde seemed more far away than when he had locked himself up in his apartment. "You turned 17 yesterday, Naruto." "Why do you ask?" "Because I just remembered some things that happened, but it seems like it was still long ago. I got 4 more years of memories to catch up on." He paused, lazily stirring his ramen. "I wonder how long it took for the villagers here to start accepting me." A crunch made Naruto look up. Ayam had unintentionally crushed a pre-made pack of ramen. On the inside, Naruto let out a small yelp at the waste of ramen. "Hey, you okay, Nate-chan?" Ayam shook her head and dusted her hands off. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just give me a minute, Naruto. I need to get something from the back." Ayam left Naruto alone in the front. Several seconds later, Naruto could make out the faint sounds of sobbing. He was one for simple things. Lounging about the village, sleeping in, generally being lazier than the entire populace of the village. On October 11th, however, there were 2 things that troubled him. One being his blonde comrade and close friend, Naruto. The other being his blonde comrade and secret crush Temari. Sighing, he deemed the whole thing too troublesome to dwell on. Of course, he wouldn't let it go, but he decided to put priorities first. So far for the day, he had been called in to the Hokage's office. For the million times that he'd been there, he knew that she was going to tell him to escort Temari from the gates to her office. It was a monthly thing, and Tsunade only requested his presence as such. There was no surprise that Shikamaru was, well, surprised at learning information that he wasn't expecting that morning accompanied with the presence of Temari. "Naruto has amnesia?" He spoke with more confusion than he ever let show. "I'm afraid so. Since it's from a psychological shutdown, all we can do is wait for him to recover on his own. I would much rather prefer having him in the hospital until he's regained his memories, but knowing him, he'd escape every chance he gets. I already assigned Ino to look after him, but other than that, there's nothing that can be done." Shikamaru groaned. Then why are you telling me? You're his friend, aren't you? I want you to tell everyone else what's going on. I'm sure Ino can handle it, but I think it's best if he has more than one person looking out for him in his condition. I trust you and the rest of your friends, and I know Naruto does too. Tsunade smiled weakly. As of now, he doesn't even know who I am. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she turned from Shikamaru. The lazy Nin looked down, knowing what the Hokage was feeling. Naruto was the reason Tsunade was Hokage in the first place. His will, his determination, his drive. It had inspired her to stop living in the past and to take responsibility for herself. He was the closest person to her outside of Shizune since Jiraiya died. He bowed to the Hokage. I'm on it, Lord Hokage. You have nothing to worry about. Tsunade looked up quickly, not expecting such a straightforward approach from Shikamaru. Wiping her eyes, she smiled at him. Thank you. You're dismissed. Several minutes after leaving the Hokage's office, Shikamaru found himself drifting towards the gate to pick up Temari. The thought of Naruto having amnesia, being affected to such a degree by the recent events. It was a bit much to take in so early in the day. Up ahead, he caught sight of Temari, her usual arrogant, sexy smirk adorning her lips. Her hands folded under her chest and slight bend to her hips. A small smirk found its way onto his own lips, and he spoke the words he knew would get under her skin. Troublesome woman. That was her key to narrow her eyes at him, her smirk never faltering. She walked towards him, bumping him with her hips and walking past him. Took you long enough. Why didn't they send you to the village to get me? She asked, walking ahead of him. Prior engagements. Things have been kind of iffy lately. Oh, how so? Shikamaru had slightly ignored the question. He was looking down in thought. However, he looked up just in time to come face to face with a bored-looking Temari. She was staring him in the eyes, and he knew she was actually analyzing him. Spit out. It's nothing of your concern, really. Personal things with a certain person in the village. Shikamaru's sweat dropped. For some reason, he had a feeling Temari wasn't going to drop it that easily. To his surprise, Temari smiled. If you don't think you can tell me, then I won't pry then. She turned around and kept walking towards the Hokage's office. Shikamaru blinked. What the hell's gotten into her? He shrugged and followed after her. It took them a little longer to reach the tower than it took for Shikamaru to reach the gates. They usually took their time, knowing that a lot of paperwork was involved in these diplomatic meetings. Regardless of their titles, Shikamaru and Temari were still teens, and they didn't like doing anything too tedious or at all in Shikamaru's case. Walking into the Hokage's office, they found her standing across the room to their left holding a kunai. They instantly dropped into fighting stances, Temari gripping her fan and Shikamaru kneeling, preparing to perform a shadow bind if necessary. Their eyes followed the gaze of the Hokage, only to find Shizune in the Hokage's line of sight. A kunai was in her hand as well, and in the other, a bottle of what was no doubt sake. Shizune, you better bring that bottle to me right now, or I swear to Kami you'll be the next one on your operating table. Shizune, who was used to any and all threats from Tsunade, physical or not, just scoffed at her. You and I both know that no matter how strong you are, you couldn't catch me if your life depended on it. Now, stop acting like a baby and do something about Naruto. For the 1,000th time, I told you there's nothing we can do. It's a mental defense, and Inoichi is still not back in the village. Now give me my sake, damn it. Shizune smirked at her best friend. No, I don't think I will. Alcohol can cause brain damage, and I don't want two people with amnesia running around here. The look on Tsunade's face was priceless to only Shizune. Shikamaru and Temari took a step back, seeing the Busta Blonde's eyebrow twitch. Shizune, I'm Hokage now. I have a village to protect. You know what happened to the last village. The smirk on Shizune's face turned into a daring scowl. Her eyes narrowed at Tsunade. Try me. Shikamaru knew that now was the time to leave. Lady Hokage, we'll come back later. He grabbed Temari's arm and pulled her from the room. Shutting the door behind them, they darted from the building. As soon as they had made it out the front door, a wall from the Hokage's office exploded. Tsunade's voice was heard seconds later, followed by Shizun's laughter. "Get back here, damn it." Temari's sweat dropped and looked at Shikamaru. He smirked. "Like I said, personal things." They began walking off the village with no clear destination for a while. It only took several minutes for Temari to inquire on a few things, however. "What's wrong with Naruto?" she asked bluntly. Shikamaru knew it was coming and had been ready to tell her the truth. She wouldn't let go of the matter, even though she had proved him wrong earlier, and she would be finding out sooner or later from one of Naruto's other friends anyway. The only reason Shikamaru wanted to keep it from Temari in the first place was because of the fact that if Gaara got wind of the situation, Konoha might have another war on its hands. "Naruto has amnesia," he began. Before Temari asked, he finished explaining, going all the way back to when Naruto first brought Sasuke back to the village. Through the entire story, Shikamaru could feel the building ki radiating from the Suna Kunoichi. At one point, he saw her reach for her fan, and he could only guess that she was preparing to go straight to the Uchiha compound and dragging Sasuke and Sakura by their privates all the way to the Kazekage. Being the genius that he wasn't far off. "So I can't kill them?" she sighed as they neared a familiar ramen stand. "No, the Hokage would have beat you to it already." They entered Ichiraku's. I am giving Shikamaru his usual greeting. He stopped by occasionally, but mainly whenever Temari was in the village. It was a cheap place and an easy way for him to pay for them both. As usual, they ate their separate ramen, only discussing things like relations between villages and such. But when the conversation drew on to Naruto, she winced. Shikamaru instantly noticed. "Hey, I-am-san, you know what's going on already?" I-am looked at her father nervously, but he nodded his approval. She sighed and wiped her hands on a towel before moving close enough for only the two to hear. "Naruto was here earlier today. He told us what happened to him when he went to see the Hokage this morning. He knows about his amnesia, but he doesn't remember everything. When he was here, he was talking about his mission to Wave Country and how the people there cheered his name when they were leaving. I remember that. It was his first real mission." Shikamaru smirked at the thought, but it quickly subsided. Things only got worse for him after that. "I know. That's why it's so hard to not tell him the truth," she said with tears in her eyes. "Why aren't you telling him the truth?" Temari asked with a hint of anger in her voice. I-am swallowed at Temari's tone, but Shikamaru calmed her down. "Don't get mad with I-am, Temari. The Ichirakas have been here for Naruto as long as the third Hokage had. Besides, think about it. If Naruto's happy right now, with just knowing that people cheered his name in Wave, he's probably wondering when did this village accept him. Plus, if he's regaining his memories, he'll need to sort through them himself, and telling him something from further down the line might make him upset, especially the things I told you on the way here." Temari grumbled, knowing Shikamaru was right, but not liking it nonetheless. Naruto had done so much for not just their village, but for her family in general. Bringing Gaara back to humanity may have been the greatest feat in the world to her. He didn't stop there, though, and continued on to somehow defeat Madara Uchiha, drag Sasuke's ungrateful ass back to the village, and save the Shinobi world. So it pissed her off that no one in the village was going to help him trough the problems he had. She felt unrelenting anger towards Sasuke and Sakura, more so towards the pink-haired Kunoichi. She had high respect for Sakura because of her aid in the Gaara retrieval mission and from the declarations of Lady Chiyo. At first, she didn't believe what Sakura had done. From back then, she had actually seemed like she cared for Naruto, even if just as a close friend. The way she looked at him sometimes hinted at more, but hearing what she did only 3 weeks ago was like a slap to the face. Temari had found it hard to like leaf ninjas until she had met Naruto, and now it felt like she was falling back on her same hatred. For all she knew, Shikamaru, Shizun, the Hokage, and Naruto were the only true respectable people in the village. Oh, and that Rock Lee kid that Gaara said was the weirdest thing to walk the planet. Hey, if Naruto was here earlier, then where did he go? Shikamaru asked. I am paled. I just realized this. I didn't think much of it at the time, but he said he's gonna look for someone. He found her. She was sitting on the swing outside of the academy. The look of her made his heart ache. Not only did she look like him when he was younger, she looked like she had died thousands of times over on the inside. Wait, that was just like him then. He used no chakra as he approached her, letting her hear his footsteps as he neared her. She slowly looked up, eyes red and swollen from shedding so many tears. Sakura-chan, what's the matter? What are you doing here alone? Naruto-kun. She whispered. Naruto's heart skipped a beat at hearing her call him that. Now I'm seeing him everywhere. Kami, why are you so cruel? She cried out, dropping her head again. What are you talking about? I'm right here. This is real, Sakura-chan, he said cheerfully, but the worry was still evident in his voice. Sakura looked up like she had seen a ghost. Naruto just gave his same goofy grin and chuckled. You look terrible. What did you do? Fight Ino again like you did at the Chunin exams? Sakura huffed at the lame joke. Baka, she mumbled. Naruto smiled. At least that hasn't changed. He let silence fall between them. Sakura sniffed and wiped her eyes before looking Naruto in the eyes. Naruto-kun, what are you doing here? I thought you would hate me after what happened. Hate you? Why would I ever hate you? What happened? He asked, only hearing the part about him hating her. He was still thinking in the naivety of a preteen. Sakura rose an eyebrow, not wanting to reflect on the things said or done in the past 3 weeks. Sakura-chan, what happened? He asked again, only inquiring about why she was crying. Looking into his eyes, his clear blue, crystal-like eyes, Sakura let herself go again. She threw her arms around his neck and cried in his shoulder. I've been so stupid, Naruto-kun. I've been so stupid and selfish and ignorant and a bitch. Sakura-chan, you're not a bitch. Though he said it, he looked around nervously as if a bolt of lightning was going to strike or something. Yes, I am. I've been so evil to you, Naruto-kun. Everything I said yesterday and what happened 3 weeks ago, I would take it all back to be with you now. Sasuke left me. He didn't even give it a second thought. Once again, Naruto only listened to certain details. You were with Sasuke? He asked dejectedly. Sakura frowned in confusion. Naruto-kun, you know this. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Not really. The thing is, I may have amnesia. Click. The light bulb instantly lit up over Sakura's head. You have amnesia? Yep, my memories are coming back, but it's still taking a little time. Sakura frowned. I can't be selfish. I've already messed up with Naruto-kun, and I can't take advantage of him like this. You shouldn't cry, Sakura. It's not like you. You're stronger than this. Naruto whispered in her ear. It sent pleasurable chills down her spine. She shivered from goosebumps rising on her skin. Unintentionally, she let out a blissful sigh. Naruto-kun, I want to ask you something. No, a few things. She looked him in the eyes. They were almost back to the shining blue she was used to. It made her heart warm, and she wanted to smile, but knowing that it was her fault for taking away that shine in the first place had forced her to look away. Go ahead, anything, he said just as sincerely. Because he was still remembering, he still thought that he was in love with Sakura. His attention hunger was back, albeit reduced slightly because of the villagers not trying to kill him every 10 minutes. His neutral thinking was starting to vanish, mixing together his memories and the calmness of the village. Sakura, showing even the slightest affection to him, took the forefront. Everything else was forgotten to him, even seeing the child, named Gaara, transforming before his eyes. Okay, she grew silent. You know I've treated you bad? Well, terrible in the past. Would you be willing to forgive me and give me another chance to make things better? Naruto let out a small chuckle. Of course. You don't need to apologize anyway, Sakura-chan. I can't ever be mad at you. Sakura held her chest. The previous knife flashed in her mind. He didn't say that last night. Oh God, I pushed him that far. Before Naruto could ask what was wrong, she asked her next question. Would you care if I could have kids or not? Naruto blushed, scratching his cheek. Sakura looked down, thinking that he was hesitating because the answer was yes. Instead, not at all. It would be sweet if I could have a son or daughter, but being with you, hypothetically, of course, would be priority. We could always adopt. She was on the verge of tears again. Why? Why do you like me? She asked, looking away. Her stomach felt light, as if she hadn't meant to ask the question. Well, I'd say I love you, not like you. Sakura's head shot up. And it's because I know what you're capable of. I know how you really are too. You're kind, Sakura, beautiful and smarter than me and Sasuke team. You're braver than anyone thought, especially the way you fought those sound ninja, and then even tried to protect Sasuke from Gaara. You were awesome. As soon as he was about to go into a rant, Sakura dove onto him again. Naruto-kun, I love you too. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sakura-chan. Naruto stayed on his back in shock. She loves me. Her mood had darkened as she continued to search for the blonde. She had been delayed when her mother had asked her to come back home and tend to the shop for a few hours. The sun was beginning to set. The chirp of crickets and CC were starting to fill the arm in a rhythmic beat. The wind even blew mildly, its whistle seeming to flow with the metronome. Ino loved nature, and especially the sound of CC. They fit the night so well, and although they symbolized grief, she found great comfort in hearing them. Tonight, however, she wished they would be silent so she could try to find her comrade. Igurashi no na kokoro ni. When the CC cry, she thought, when they cry, a person's heart is shattered. When they're silent, a person's heart is gone. When they die, a person's heart is returned. She remembered it from one of her old mythology books. She had never believed in it until she came across a scene at the academy that would stay forever etched in her memories. Sakura and Naruto were there. Lip to lip, the CC are crying. Is there anything in particular that you want by calling this meeting together, Uchiha? Hayashi Hyuga spat with malice as he sat in his rightful spot on the council. That's Uchiha-san to you, Hyuga-sama. The council elder Koharu spoke in a haughty pride that would make him seem like he was from the Uchiha clan. Hayashi narrowed his eyes, but said nothing more. Tsunade looked between the two, bored, well aware of the hatred between the two. On her left, the council elder Hamura cleared her throat. Please refrain from asking questions until Uchiha Anno has spoken. Ki flooded the room from almost every shinobi present, including the Hokage, at hearing the old kunoichi done so much respect to Sasuke, which she blatantly never showed to Tsunade herself. Go ahead, Uchiha Anno. She continued, starting to sweat. Sasuke gave his usual HN before standing in the center of the room where everyone could see him. I wanted to call this meeting regarding recent events. He spoke disdainfully, as if the words were a rotten food that he was spitting out. Due to a medical incident a while back, my current Slav mate is unable to produce children. I had wanted to settle down with Miss Haruno and starting a single, normal family. However, that is impossible. What the hell does that have to do with us? Some Inazuka, Kiba's mother, growled out. Several other council members present voiced their agreements. However, Tsunade reluctantly silenced them. I wish to push a decree, he stated bluntly. The room instantly exploded in yelling. Sasuke stood calmly amidst the yells, eyes never leaving the Hokage. Shut up, Tsunade yelled, trying hard not to punch anything. Look, I haven't had any sake all day, and I damn sure don't want to be here all day. Let the piece of shit speak, she said with as much authority as a Hokage could muster. Everyone fell silent, even Sasuke taking a small gulp. Under the third act of federal clan legislation, I am entitled to exactly one decree. This decree is only effective to those within my clan and those who deal directly with my clan. We know the laws, Uchiha, get on with it. Tsunade snapped. My apologies, Hokage-sama. Under the Federal Clan Resurrection Act, I am entitled to choose several females to aid in the resurrection of my clan from several clans inside the village, and the clan heads must at least have a meeting in order to accept or decline. This would fall under directly dealing with my clan. Am I correct? Absolutely, Uchiha Dano. Hamura piped up again, having more ki directed at her. It's come to my knowledge after reading the soul, Kekiai Genkai clause that I, as a clan head, am to be allowed any type of decree that I want, as long as it also aids in the creation of more Sharingan, in this case. A feeling of dread began to settle on the room as Sasuke smirked. Through all three of these articles, I wish to decree that any female, as long as they are of a clan, cannot be denied to me as mates in the revival of the Uchiha clan and the restoration of the Sharingan. The gasps and shouts that filled the room only seemed to make Sasuke's smirk grow. Tsunade slammed a hand down on the table in front of her, silencing the room once again. She glared at Sasuke, making his smirk fade. You must be out of your fucking mind to think that I'd let you do something like this. She spoke low, venom dripping from every word. To her dismay, the elder spoke before Sasuke could dig his own grave. Lord Hokage, you must. Uchiha Dano has done all the proper research, and he falls under all the required categories. Koharu spoke in an even drawl. Yes, and if you deny Uchiha Dano this, what could stop you from denying all the rest of these clans their rightful decrees? Hamura added. None of our clans would decree something so revolting. Chusa Akimichi bellowed. It doesn't matter what you would decree. What matters is the law. Uchiha Dano is entitled to this one request, as stated in the aforementioned articles. Koharu rose his voice to get his point across. Enough, Tsunade called, holding her head as a headache formed. She sighed, knowing that they could go on debating the situation all night, but she had other duties to attend to. And like it or not, Sasuke had followed all the guidelines to legally request this. I assume you already have the paperwork. She mumbled. Hokage-sama, you can't be serious. Shikaku Nara asked. Though he had no daughter of his own, there was one female kunoichi he considered a daughter. And if he knew any better, her name would be brought up in the council meeting. He's legally tied my hands, Nara-san. There's nothing I can do. At the moment, she thought to herself. After being presented with the documents, she thoroughly read over them, just in case there was more foul play than what was already being imposed. Finding none, she hesitantly stamped the paper. Every face in the room outside of the elders and Sasuke's held deep despair. No one could place what this exactly meant. Tsunade rolled the scroll violently before standing sharply and practically running from the council room. Hamura picked up the skull and smiled. These are the names of the very lucky and privileged women who will be aiding Uchiha Dano in the revival of his clan and the restoration of the Sharingan. Tenten Hiroshi. What? Nato Hiroshi. Her father leaped from his seat, drawing the katana in a natural movement. No, you will not lay a finger on my daughter, you scum. Nato-san, please sit down. There's nothing that can be done at this point. Shikaku stated grimly. His fists were clenched on his lap, out of view. Hana Inuzuka. You piece of shit, I'll rip the skin from your dick off. Some yelled and lunged forward, Shikaku stopping her inches from Sasuke with his shadow. You can't have her. I won't let you. She struggled against a shadow bind, actually having enough strength to twitch a few times. After several moments of fruitless struggling, some returned to her seat, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hinata Hyuga. The only sound that escaped Hayashi was a low growl. He had his arms folded, but it was visible that he was restraining himself from any movement. His Byakugan flared several times. Just when I decide to do right by her. Finally, Hamura was finishing the list, proudly saying each name and only getting happier with each reaction. The last person who will be joining Uchiha Dano is Ino Yamanaka. All persons mentioned are to be notified tonight, packed, and lead to Uchiha Dano's residence first thing in the morning. Chusa was the first to jump up, but Shikaku's hand on his shoulder stopped him. All Shikaku did was shake his head before leading Chusa out of the council room. No one saw the blood dripping from his fist as he gripped a kunai tighter than ever before. This is not the end, Chapter 6. Planning for Disaster. Just what the fuck is going on here? Sasuke thought as he stood in front of the Uchiha compound, two very pissed off teens in front of him. It wasn't even an hour after the council meeting, and he was already in another bad position. You heard us, Uchiha. What the hell do you think you're trying to pull? Neji asked with his arms folded, a slight shiver from trying to hold his anger. Why even bother asking, Neji? Why don't we just rip him to bits and feed his ass to the pups? Kiba growled sadistically. Sasuke dug in his ear, seemingly dismissing them. I don't know what you're talking about. You bastard, Kiba growled, preparing to lunge forward. However, Neji stopped him. Calm down, Inuzuka. Let's hear what this degenerate has to say. Degenerate? Sasuke asked with an arrogant smirk. With your second-rate Kekkei Genkai, you really think you should be calling me a degenerate, Hyuga? Kiba glanced at Neji, expecting him to go off. Instead, Neji smirked. Yes, and I suppose your tainted eyes that made you damn near go blind would be better than my eyes that just seem to gain more and more sight as I get stronger. But what am I to do with such perfect eyes? To end his point, Neji activated his Byakugan and slid into the Juken stance. Kiba smiled and cracked his knuckles. Sasuke only growled and turned around. Get off my property. Oh, so the Uchiha is scared of a little sparring match, huh? So much for your pride, or whatever's left of it. Kiba called, a serious glare adorning his face. Even Neji was a little shocked at the statement. Sasuke spun back around, flashing through hand signs. Seconds later, a fireball engulfed the two teens. With a huff, Sasuke watched the ball of fire wither away. Kiba and Neji were gone. Drawing his katana, he blocked a clawed slash from Kiba as he fell from above. Turning on his heel, he dodged several strikes from Neji. How dare you attack a clan head? Sasuke grunted, having difficulty dodging all of Neji's attacks. Neji in return jumped back towards Kiba. Attack? Why? Didn't you hear Kiba say this was sparring? Besides, wasn't it you who attacked first, Uchiha? Sasuke growled in his throat and pointed his sword at the two. Fine, I'll play your little game, but don't blame me when you're 6 feet under. Kiba cracked his neck. I'm gonna enjoy this. I won't kill you, though. No, that honor belongs to Hana. I believe Hinata and Tintin will be wanting to aid in the Uchiha's disappearance as well. Neji added. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, and then he smiled. So that's what this is about. He began to laugh. Well then, if that's the case, then come on. Nothing you do here will change what's already been decided. Sasuke pulled out shuriken and threw them. Neji deflected them easily while Kiba weaved through them, headed towards the raven-haired teen. Sasuke activated his Sharingan as Kiba began to attack. Kiba slashed rapidly at the Uchiha, but every move was dodged. Moving to the side, he allowed Neji to rush in and continue where he left off. Sasuke took several strikes as he wasn't prepared for the switch. With several chakra points closed off, all Sasuke could do was retreat. He jumped back several feet and channeled lightning chakra into his blade. Neji looked at Kiba, who nodded. Neji relaxed and stood up straight, folding his arms. Kiba was going to fight alone. Sasuke growled, thinking that they weren't taking him seriously anymore. Don't underestimate me, Uchiha. Naruto's not the only one that's gotten stronger. Kiba whistled, and Akamaru landed next to him. Popping a pill into Akamaru's mouth, he called the Beastman clone technique. With two feral-looking Kibas standing side by side, Sasuke actually sweated. Kiba scoffed in his mind, seeing that Sasuke hadn't even activated the Manjikyu. He was still underestimating him. Hang back, Akamaru. Kiba ordered before rushing in first. Sasuke slashed at Kiba, only to hit air as it was apparent that Kiba was much faster now. Appearing behind Sasuke, Kiba prepared to slash through. However, Sasuke back-kicked Kiba. Kiba burst into smoke, revealing a bunshin. Moving to the side, Sasuke dodged as the real Kiba smashed into the ground where he had just been standing. With a burst of speed, Kiba twirled and called Gitsuga. On both sides of Sasuke, Kiba and Akamaru became drilling blurs and smashed into him. Spinning around in midair, they came back around. Sasuke flipped in the air and slashed at one of the incoming blurs. Sparks flew as the attacks collided. At the last second, Sasuke activated the Manjikyu Sharingan. In a burst of light, Akamaru fell from the sky, covered in black flames. Kiba stopped mid-attack and dropped down next to his partner. Akamaru! He screamed and was about to try to douse the flames on the screeching animal. Sasuke growled and held his head as the use of Amaterasu caused his eyes to ache. Son of a bitch. He actually made me use it. Sasuke's thoughts were interrupted as the flames began to fade. His eyes widened as he saw Niji's Byakugan glowing bright silver. What the fuck is that? He demanded. Didn't I tell you already, Uchiha? As I get stronger, so does my Byakugan. It's only natural that a simple trick such as that is nothing compared to me. Now, if you're done sparring with Kiba, maybe we could start the real match. Kiba picked up the unconscious animal and laid him to the side. He stood back next to Niji, face set in a deadly glare. Niji soon stopped smiling too, taking his fighting stance. I promise you, if I have to shut down your entire body and rip you apart on the cellular level, I will kill you before I allow you to defile either Hinata or Tenten. All who approached the office felt it. A dark presence, malicious but not completely evil, more furious than anything. Older generations would have connected it to the QB if they didn't know that Naruto had already absorbed its chakra. However, most shinobi knew exactly what this oppressive aura was, having felt it many times, and even some experienced it. The Hokage was pissed. No one had ever felt it this bad before. It was like waves of killing intent, layered with nightmares, pain, and the unforgiving sorrow of thousands of mercilessly killed innocents. In general, the next person to piss Tsunade off was going to experience a fate far worse than hell itself. On another related note, Shizen was just as pissed off as the Hokage as she paced the room furiously, cursing the Uchiha and any other random thing she could think of. Son of a bitch brat. How the hell does he get away with shit like this? Disgusting, repulsive, shit-eating bastard. And this fucking rain. Why the fuck has it rained 5 damn days in a row? As if the world wasn't depressing enough. She paused. And this damn sandal is too big. She kicked her foot, sending the sandal flying into the wall. Shizen, sit down and shut the hell up. Tsunade snapped, getting a nasty glare from Shizen. She did as she was told anyway, flopping down onto the sofa on the left side of the room. Fucking tempers, she mumbled. Tsunade would have found her apprentice's newfound anger quite amusing if she wasn't in a worse mood herself. It had been almost 30 minutes since the council meeting had ended, and she was sure some of the clan heads had already went to inform their families about the proposal. Some would most likely have alerted her family immediately, giving Hana time to vent before the inevitable happened. And if she knew her ninja like she thought she did, Kiba would be on his way to the Uchiha as she pondered the happenings. Next, she expected Hayashi to break the news to Hinata without sugarcoating anything. Hinata would probably break down, and of course Niji would know right away, which meant 2 of her ninja were currently on their way to the Uchiha compound. Nato would beat around the bush with Tenten. He would try to find a way to break it to her slowly, and of course Tenten would know that her father was hiding something. Sweat dropping, the image of Tenten holding a katana to Nato's favorite appendage flashed through her mind. Tenten would also go to Niji, if not, take things into her own hands. Finally, Shikaku and Chuza wouldn't tell Ino directly. They'd probably go through her mother first, which would mean that Ino would be the last to find out about what happened. With a sigh, she picked up the cup of tea Shizen had brought her and sipped it. She opened a drawer on her desk and pulled out several files. Flipping through them, she triple-checked the Uchiha's declarations, hoping to find a loophole of any kind. It was just impossible, and she was starting to lose hope. A tear came to corner of her eye. What type of Hokage couldn't even protect several of their own kunoichi from their own laws? She cursed herself, but more so Konoha too. Why were these type of laws implemented in the first place? In the back of her mind, she knew it was to alleviate power evenly because Konoha wasn't a dictatorship. Only in times of war or crisis did it have military sovereign. The only constant was shinobi authority over civilians. But this was S. Shinobi case, so that didn't matter. She felt that she should have been able to do more as Hokage, but the damn council liked to play dirty. Tsunade's eyes widened. She stood up from her desk quickly, knocking it over and running to a filing cabinet. She ripped open one of the drawers and briskly shuffled through the hundreds of documents. Shizen rose an eyebrow and crossed the room to her friend. "Hey, what's the matter, Hokage-sama?" she asked, bewildered at Tsunade's sudden outburst. Tsunade didn't respond and kept searching until she pulled out 2 files. Her eyes lit up and shoved one of the files into Shizun's hands. "Read," she said simply before sitting on her overturned desk and reading her own file. Shizun cocked her head and did as she was instructed. Several minutes of reading, and Shizun's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Lady Tsunade. How the fuck did I overlook this the first time? Tsunade cursed and grit her teeth. You weren't interested in reading the third's final documents, remember? You said the old man probably only wanted to preach about hard work and dedication as the leader of the village, or, and I quote, some bullshit like that. Shizun narrowed her eyes at Tsunade, who had the grace to blush. Well, it was bullshit like that at first, so I just skimmed it. She chuckled nervously. Karma was a bitch. Well, Shizun asked, handing her the files. Tsunade put her hand under her chin, thinking intently. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Well, as you were lately, maybe you will. Tsunade turned towards one of the corners of the room. Lynx, go retrieve Ino Yamanaka, Hinata Hyuga, Tintin Hiroshi, and Hana Inuzuka immediately. Tell them that it is urgent, and take them by force if you must. Just be back here in no less than 10 minutes. A female Umbu stepped from the shadows and bowed to the Hokage, issuing a quick, "Hi, ma'am," before disappearing from the office. So what's this plan, Hokage-sama? Shizun asked, honestly curious. We're gonna play dirty too, Shizun. Tsunade's dark smirk sent a shiver up the young medic's spine. Flashes of the previous night flooded her head. Naruto, I would never hurt you anymore. I would never take advantage of you. I just want you to be happy again. The pulses of her heart brought forth deep emotions. I understand, but that doesn't make it any easier. Knowing that I screwed up my chances with Sakura, and now seeing just how confused I was to have kept running after her in the first place. I wasted the last few years of my life trying to make her happy, and this is what I get in the end. The revelation of it all brought her deep despair. I'll stand by him until my last breath. A tear hit the ground, leaving nothing but a small circle. Ino stared at the scene, unable to move. Her emotions held her paralyzed. The wind's chill was sharper than ever before and let her know that she wasn't imagining the sight. More tears joined the others on her face. She was crying from heartache and also anger. Not at Naruto. She was logical enough to know that Naruto wouldn't be in that position if he had his memories back. No. She was mad at Sakura, the person she used to call her best friend, the person she had grew up with and had shared good and bad times with, the person she had put so much faith in to be the better person between them. Oh, how ironic that they switched roles. She was mad at Sakura for once again showing how much Naruto really meant to her. She was taking advantage of him again, but this time would be the last time. Putting both her emotions and logical thinking in a high gear, Ino reached for her kunai pouch. Yamanaka-san, forgive me for such haste, but the Hokage has required your presence immediately. Ino's line of sight was suddenly obscured by an Umbu, female. What? No, Imbusi, she called, only loud enough for the Umbu in front of her to hear. I understand, the Umbu whispered as she gazed over her shoulder towards the sight behind them. I was stationed in the office when you brought him to the Hokage. I understand completely what this is about. I also know that what you're about to do would land you time in prison, or worse. Ino growled, fist clenched tightly. Just who are you anyway? Someone who didn't understand what strength was until I met that brat over there. Your typical Umbu, and Uzumaki Namikaze's Naruto admirer. The Umbu giggled uncharacteristically. I may even be a fangirl. Ino felt a quick rush of pride, a small sliver of happiness, and maybe just a hint of jealousy. This random Umbu was talking about Naruto, her Naruto, like he was human. It wasn't a secret that it was rare to hear such things. If only Naruto would have looked past Sakura, past the pain that she caused, he would see that there were more people that cared about him. He didn't need to hang on to her anymore. Just like he didn't need to hang on to Sasuke. The Hokage has made this urgent. I am to take you by force if I must. The Umbu snapped Ino from her musings. By force? What the hell is going on, Lady Tsunade? Ino was smart enough to know not to fight an Umbu. Not that she would want to at this point. Even if she thought she could win, fighting the Umbu would also earn her time in prison. Reluctantly, she decided to go. Looking back once more, she caught sight of Naruto and Sakura pulling away from each other. One more tear rolled down her cheek, and before the Umbu shined them away, Naruto looked her right in the eyes. Naruto would have thought that he would be in heaven, to finally have the girl that he had always wanted on top of him, kissing him. He thought that fireworks would go off overhead and that his stomach would do backflips. But for some reason, it felt like alarms were going off in his head. Something wasn't right. Sakura was putting forth all her emotions into that kiss, but it just wasn't what he had expected. It was like his body was physically rejecting the act. A faint thought in his mind made him think that he didn't want it. Explain to me everything that possessed you to come crying to me, to beg me to bring Sasuke back. Naruto's eyes widened. It wasn't a memory, or at least one that fit with the timeline. It was just an echo of words in his head. His memories began to speed up, now lingering on a moment that made him crumble. Please, Naruto. Please, this is a promise of a lifetime. Sakura cried, hugging herself. They stood in front of the Konoha gates. Please, bring Sasuke-kun back to me. That's all I ask of you. Naruto stopped kissing Sakura, the memory fresh as if it were happening at the moment. Afraid of what to say, he looked away from her. However, a pain entered his heart for a reason he wouldn't be able to understand until more of his memories had returned. Ino. Naruto saw the girl, watching them. She was crying just before she vanished with an Umbu. What was that? Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Sakura's voice broke him out of his thoughts instantly. He was plunged back into the memory of them at the gates. You cried for him, Naruto whispered. Sakura's heart skipped a beat as she realized what he was saying. He remembers up until then already? No, at this rate, I don't want to lose him again. Naruto-kun, that's the past, was all she could think to say. Naruto didn't respond, seeming to be lost in another memory. Sakura could only hold her breath at what he was remembering. Suddenly, he began to shift from under her. Naru. Sakura, get up. He spoke coldly. What? Please get up. He softly pushed her. She did as she was told and moved away. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? Naruto held his chest. It was right over the area where Sasuke had plunged his Chidori. He tried to kill me. All I was doing was trying to bring him back. I failed at that. I lost Gigi and even Sasuke. You said, he's in the village right now. Naruto glanced at Sakura, only to see her standing with her back turned. Seeing her back, the image of her and Sasuke walking away from him flashed in his mind. He finally started to think. After all that, you still loved him. Yes, I still loved him. I may even still do. Sakura turned around, facing Naruto. But not as much as I love you. When did you fall in love with me? Naruto asked coldly. For some reason, he already knew the answer. His memories were starting to get jumbled up. From the point after Sasuke left, everything seemed to blur. He saw Gaara's lifeless body taken by the Akatsuki, and then saw a man with orange hair standing in a crater that used to be Konoha. Then they rushed backwards again, showing him facing Orochimaru on the Tenchi Bridge using 4 tails of the Kyuubi's chakra. It was like his mind was siphoning everything trying to get to one point. Sakura didn't respond. Her eyes were watering again, and she only looked up as she saw Naruto walking away. This time, having had her few moments of happiness, feeling what it was truly like to be held by the person who actually loved her, Sakura felt no regret. She didn't walk after him. She didn't call his name. Her fantasy was finally over. She would go on living alone, and she would scold herself for years to come. She would hate herself, cry for herself, to herself for thinking that she made a mistake. However, after the sun has once again shined onto Konoha, onto Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, she would look back and know that she made the right decision. A decision that would lead him to his own happiness, a happiness that she could never be a part of, a happiness that she ruined by throwing her emotions at Sasuke. The smartest decision she's ever made. She let him go. Naruto walked away from the pink-haired Kunoichi feeling destroyed. He was walking away from what he had always thought he wanted, but the recent thoughts running through his mind were starting to change that. Even if it was just a feeling, just an itch, he felt he wasn't supposed to be with her. Not now or ever. Then, he thought about who he was supposed to be with. His memories seemed more focused on a single person, someone whom he had never really thought about in his own right. Where are you, Ino? Going back into his recent memories, he remembered that she was the first one there when he lost his memories. As well, she was the only one to take him to the Hokage to try to fix him. She had come to the Hokage mountain to check up on him, and she had even been there several minutes ago. Even without his memories, he was sure there was something going on between him and Ino, and something even worse going on between him and Sakura. He stumbled as he walked forward, more memories finally shifting into the right time slots. Jiraiya-sensei. Tears formed in his eyes as he dropped to his knees. I couldn't protect anyone. I couldn't do anything right. Naruto grit his teeth and stood to his feet. Instead of walking, he stood in place, trying his hardest to remember everything, to get back the thoughts that seemed more important than he had initially realized. Something big was happening that involved him, and he needed to know what. Shifting through his mind swiftly, he went over the last few hours of him having amnesia. His mind seemed to reach a block as he couldn't remember past seeing Ino in his apartment. Damn it. Come on, I just need to remember before then. He willed himself, trying hard to break past that point. Suddenly, his eyes shot open. Ino had used her family jutsu on him. She was crying. It still wasn't a memory, more along the lines of a random thought. He cringed and held his head in pain. He needed to remember. He needed to remember everything. But his mind was fading again. More memories flooded his head, and Naruto once again passed out. Hokage-sama, what's the meaning of this? Ino screeched as she walked into the office. Her voice immediately calmed as she saw the three other kunoichi in the room with her. What's going on? She asked more quietly. Ino, I suppose you're the only one who doesn't know this, so I guess I can explain one more time. The Hokage delivered the message of the council, frowning darkly as the words left her lips like poison. To say Ino was shocked was a huge understatement. The Yamanaka heiress wasn't even confused. She was downright speechless. Her mouth hung open and her eyes were wide. It was a comical sight. However, the situation was dire and no one offered even a snicker. I knew that damn Uchiha was a bastard, but this, Ino thought, as rage finally began to sink into her features. Before you explode, I have a solution to this already, Tsunade said with a smirk, gaining the attention of all the present kunoichi. Umbu, leave the room. Except for you Lynx. I need at least one outside witness. The three Umbu, not including Lynx, vanished from the room. What are we going to do, Hokage-sama? I don't want anything to do with that traitor. Ten spat with malice. The three other teens nodded in agreement. Sorry to say, but you three will have to be loyal to the Uchiha, Tsunade said, hiding her smirk this time. The kunoichi instantly began shouting their protest, stopping as the Hokage held her hand up. Don't get me wrong. I have no intention of letting the Uchiha get away with anything like this. My plan consists of you four being as loyal as possible. Understand, The bewildered looks on the girls' faces told her they still didn't understand. Holding the bridge of her nose, the Hokage sighed. Look, you're going to fake loyalty to the Uchiha. My plan is a huge gamble because I'm setting it up so that no extensive damage will be done to anyone except the Uchiha. Shizune handed the girls papers, telling them to read it over quickly. Instantly, smirks appeared on all of their faces. This may well be the greatest plan in Shinobi history. Shikamaru would even be jealous, Ino exclaimed. Actually, he's the one who helped write it. Shizune's sweat dropped, and all the girls in the room laughed. Hokage-sama, are you sure about this though? Just from the first page, I can see that this is the biggest risk we can take short of starting a war with another country. Hannah asked worriedly. Sorry to say, it's the only chance we've got. The parts that seem overly unnecessary may actually be parts that save our asses. She replied seriously. We're putting all of our faith into him. Again, Tintin said sadly. Ino frowned. It's also a big risk. If Naruto doesn't regain his memories in time, this will never work. He's going to be in an emotional state as is. She added. Like I said, it's the only chance we've got. Tomorrow, be at the Uchiha compound, but don't let that sick bastard touch any of you. Start the plan immediately. You're all dismissed to get prepared. The Kunoichi began to file out of the room. Once outside, Hinata stopped Ino. Ino, what happened to Naruto-kun? Why does he have amnesia? Hinata asked silently. Ino frowned again. She had forgotten all about the young heiress. Her mind had been focusing on Naruto, and she was sure that it was how Hinata used to feel. She couldn't deny the building feelings for the blonde she held, and now knew that it would cause friction between her and Hinata. Honestly, in a nutshell, it's all Sakura and Sasuke's fault. Ino replied. Hinata, he's hurting badly. He needs people there for him, and she trailed off, looking away from her friend. Hinata's eyes widened slightly. You? Ino nodded. Please forgive me, Hinata. I never meant for it to go like this. Hinata looked down. She wanted to be mad, or sad, or anything, but she wasn't. She was the opposite of those. She was happy. Happy that someone else finally saw what she did in the blonde. Ino, it's so easy to fall in love with him, she said with a smile. Even knowing that, I won't give up on him. And I hope you don't either. You're right. He needs people there for him. So if it's me, you, or both of us, it doesn't matter as long as someone is there for him. Ino looked at her friend in surprise. Hinata had never spoken like that, and it only furthered her realization that Naruto meant more to the village than even he knew. Wiping a stray tear from her eye, Ino took Hinata's hand. Thank you, Hinata. As the two began to walk away from the Hokage building, a feeling of dread entered their stomachs. Tomorrow was going to bring about a huge change in the village. It was up to a single person to show if it would be a good change or a bad one. Chapter 7, Beyond the Horizon. Cold. That's all he could feel. A bitter cold that clung to him like a wet sheet. He felt as if he were drowning, going deeper into the darkness that surrounded him. As he fell deeper, even the cold seemed to fade away. There was nothing. All was gone. His spirit was shattered. His mind was wrecked. The bitter aftertaste of despair sat upon his lips, a poison that ate away at his tongue. The darkest parts of hell couldn't conceal the sorrow in the teen's heart, nor could a light pierce the shadows that surrounded him. He was alone, now and forever, cursed by the one he loved. Or used to. No light. No darkness. Nothing. No pain. No pleasure. Empty. The past clouded the judgment of those that looked to the future. Only those who could hold on to their present, accept their past, and embrace their future could move on. He couldn't accept his past. It was loathsome, degrading. Nothing about it appealed to him. Nothing he wanted to keep. But it was everything he couldn't run from. All the sins that he'd committed, all the pain he'd endured. They would forever haunt him, regardless of how he closed his eyes. Regardless of how he tried to shut it all out. There would be no escape, not until he turned and faced it all. His memories had returned, full force. Shifting ever so slightly, he felt himself on a bed. In his 17 years of life, he had become well acquainted with the lumpy, spring-loaded mattress. So the first thing that came to mind while waking up was how he got back to his closed-off box of a home. He leaned up, holding his head as he felt like it was loaded with much more than it could contain. Finally up, Naruto didn't flinch. He didn't jump or scream. He just sat there. He had already been aware of the person, knowing instinctively that it could only be her. The person who was the main focus of his memories, the star of his dreams, and the savior of his nightmares. Ino. Ino stood silently in the doorway to his room. She looked down, hearing the dead, tired voice escape the blonde's lips. It was as if all life had been drained right out of him. Even the chill of the air felt like the Shinigami was hovering nearby. She had walked Hinata back to her home, her father having summoned her right after the meeting with the Hokage. So she had been on her way home herself, lost in the pleasurable thought of the plan that was to be implemented against the Uchiha. But first, she had wanted to go back to where Naruto and Sakura had been, hopefully to finish what she had started. Instead, she found Naruto a bit ways off, unconscious on the ground. The first emotion to cross her features, of course, was shock. Then almost instantly, pure unbridled rage. Logic failing, Ino immediately pegged Sakura for the blonde's current position. However, remembering that it wasn't safe for the teen to be laid out on the side of the road, she quickly scooped him up and headed towards the only place she could think of, aka his apartment. It wasn't truly viable, but she knew that they couldn't go to the hospital. Nobody would be able to figure out what was wrong with him. Going back to Tsunade wouldn't prove any better, and taking the blonde back to her own home was asking for a night of interrogation should her father return anytime between dusk and dawn. She used his keys in his pocket to open the door and once again found herself tending to the unconscious teen in his room. A sad smirk had found its way onto her face as she felt deja vu. The only difference was that Naruto was actually alive this time. Taking his temperature and making sure he was comfortable, she found out that he had only passed out. He wasn't running a fever or anything. He was just tired. Throughout the whole ordeal, Ino kept checking up on the blonde anyway, stroking his hair from his face and hoping that she'd be able to catch his sleepy gaze when he first awoken. She also fully evaluated everything up until then. Now, for the first time since she had started worrying about the blonde, she could honestly say that she wanted to be with him, more than his comrades or friends. She wanted to experience what Sakura had missed out on, what Hinata had always wanted, and what several other girls secretly swooned to. Of course, she would feel bad about taking Naruto first, seeing as Hinata had never done anything to anybody. Thinking about it, Ino felt like she was getting ahead of herself. Naruto knew about the feelings Hinata had for him, but he never returned them. He still went after Sakura. But now, he may fall back towards the Hyuga heiress. Ino held her chest as she felt a pain in her heart. Again, for the first time in her life, Ino felt something that she thought that she was too good for. Complete and true jealousy. They're back, Naruto mumbled, looking out the window. Ino was snapped from her thoughts and looked at the blonde. She rose an eyebrow in confusion. What's back? My memories. They're all back. Naruto's voice was colder than the chilling air. It was low, even, and held no emotions whatsoever. It was as if he were silently talking to himself, or no one at all. It raised goosebumps on Ino's skin, making her rub her arms in indifference. She walked over to the bed and sat down on the edge, leaning her head against his shoulder. He didn't move. It's funny, he said, with no sarcasm, how things really do tend to be so fucked up for those who try to be saints. Like how God tends to put all the faithful through harsh trials, making them suffer while saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Testing how true their faithfulness is, pushing them to the point where they may break. What's the point? Ino sat confused at the blonde's words but didn't show it. After several seconds of thought, she started understanding what he meant, but she still didn't see the relevance. All this time, I've been trying to protect everyone, even the ones who wanted me dead. I turned my back on a girl who really loved me for a girl that only loved me as second best. Ino stiffened, knowing that he was referring to Hinata and Sakura. Naruto-kun, not everyone felt that way. Then there's my so-called best friend. Naruto continued as if he hadn't heard her. The one I spent all these years trying to find, trying to pull back from the darkness, risking everything, body, soul, existence, only to find a deranged piece of shit that only wanted to end my life and those of everyone I cared about. And what did I do? I still brought him back. I never gave up. How ironic that my tenaciousness be the downfall of me. It was silent. The world seemed to have stopped spinning, leaving only the wind blowing over the halted soil. Sasuke lay, unable to move but still conscious at his feet. Debris still fell, uplifted from Naruto's Raisin Shuriken. The Uchiha groaned and howled out, trying to get his body to respond, so he could kill the person who only wanted to save him. Why? Why are you so much stronger? Sasuke shouted, tears of blood running down his face as his eyes repeatedly shifted from normal to Manjikyu. Naruto could only look down on the person whom he still called a friend. The same person that even now was still trying to kill him. Unable to move, body broken and damn near paralyzed, but still with enough blood lust for someone who only cared. I'm stronger because I have something and someone I want to protect. Someone that I want to save. I told you, I'd take you back to the village, even if I had to break every bone in your body. You're my friend Sasuke. I won't let you destroy yourself. Sasuke grunted, rage still in his eyes. Naruto didn't see it, nor did he want to. So he trudged over to the downed Uchiha, holding his violently bleeding side. His vision was blurring even now, having a small bit of healing power left. It was only enough to get him back to the village, and then in the hands of someone with a bit more medical experience. He picked up Sasuke and slung his arm over his shoulder. All the while, Sasuke shouted threats and profane extremities. Naruto ignored, always the positive thinker, wanting Sasuke to become what he used to be, to go back to the past where they were just gening, fighting Haku and Zabuza, saving each other in the forest of death, acting as brothers. Even if he's stronger, Sasuke thought. A sadistic smirk made its way onto his face. I'm going to win. If I can't beat you physically, Dobe, I'll take everything else from you. I promise. Naruto smiled, not knowing what the Uchiha was thinking. He still held onto the past, clinging to it like a safety blanket, so it obvious that he was completely oblivious to the upcoming events. The events that would forever change him and the Leaf Village from that day forward. Look, we're almost there, Naruto called as the village gates came into view. After a while, the two had settled into silence. Sasuke, planning for tearing the blonde apart, and Naruto, trying to stay conscious as the wound on his side proved to be worse than he expected. He coughed up blood, stumbling slightly. You're going to be dead before we even get back, Sasuke mumbled. Naruto thought that it was because he was worried about him, but couldn't see the small smirk on Sasuke's face. As they neared the gates, audible gasps were heard, and then the groaning of the door opening. Has Umbu alerted the Hokage? Naruto asked one of the guards. Yes, several minutes ago. They should be here shortly. Naruto nodded and then continued his trudge forward into his home. Konohagakure, the village hidden in leaves, would finally be able to rest. Peace would ensue from that day forward. Akatsuki was gone. Orochimaru was gone. Danzo was gone. Madara Uchiha was burnt toast. The Kyuubi no longer existed. Now to top it all off, Naruto had finally brought Sasuke home. Yes, peace was sure to follow, they all naively hoped. Inside, and only several meters away from a gate, Naruto paused. He couldn't go in further on his own without falling out. We'll have to wait here, Naruto mumbled, finding it harder to talk by the second. Sasuke was laughing in his head, hoping to be the one to watch the blonde drop dead in the middle of the road. Come on, you can make it to the hospital, Sasuke called, hiding his enthusiasm with his trademark scowl. I wish, Naruto responded, still not realizing the undertone the Uchiha was hiding. It won't take long. I can feel Sakura-chan coming closer anyway. A light bulb went up over Sasuke's head instantly. He almost threw his head back and laughed maniacally, but he was still in pain as well. Several yards ahead, Naruto saw Sakura stop, hands to her chest and tears in her eyes. Then a smile slowly formed as she beamed in excitement. She dashed towards them, eyes never leaving Sasuke. As soon as she reached them, she practically dove onto them, more so Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun, you're actually back. Kami-sama, you're really home. Sasuke was remembering the time where he had almost killed Sakura for the third time. He found it amazing that the pink-haired girl would still have feelings for him after 3 times, but he shrugged it off. Actually, now was perfect. It was because of Naruto that Sakura wasn't dead by his hands, and now that was all going to come back around to haunt him. Several yards away, some of Naruto's friends watched the scene silently, deciding not to make themselves present since the old Team 7 was finally being reunited. As Sakura pain, Sasuke groaned, making the pink-haired teen blush and lean up. She quickly pulled Sasuke to his feet with her monstrous strength, failing to notice the blood on all 3 from Naruto's wound. Naruto had hit the ground hard when the pink-haired girl had jumped at them. His strength was just about gone. He stood up slowly, not wanting to further injure himself, and was about to make himself visible to the girl. However, Sasuke beat him to it. Sakura, I need to get to the hospital, Sasuke said with a fake moan. Sakura nodded eagerly and pulled out a small pouch of soldier pills. In her haste, she accidentally dropped several but popped one in Sasuke's mouth anyway. Sasuke-kun, please don't leave me alone again, she whispered as she stepped closer to him. Naruto froze on spot. Sasuke caught the movement out of the corner of his eyes. Why would I ever do that? Sakura, I want to be with you. That's the only reason I'm back now. I don't care about anyone else. Anyone. He shot a quick glance at Naruto, which went unnoticed by Sakura alone. Sakura hugged Sasuke, crying into his chest. Her word became muffled and unreadable. SAS Sasuke. Naruto was saying but fell to his knees. Sasuke smirked at Naruto before making Sakura look up at him. He whispered something to her and she nodded, never even bothered to look Naruto's way. He was invisible to her. Her world was now taken up by the visage of Sasuke and Sasuke alone. Yes, yes, I'll marry you, Sasuke-kun, Sakura shouted to the world. That was the last thing she said before shining them both to the hospital. Naruto was speechless, looking at the empty air in front of him. So quick, but so much. Everything had gone wrong, just like that. In the blink of an eye, he was supposed to be the one to get Sakura. He was the one that was supposed to have been the girl's hero. Before he lost consciousness, he grabbed 2 of the soldier pills that Sakura had dropped and disdainfully ate them. Feeling some of his strength returning, he shunned shine to the only place where he could think. Ino, Shikamaru, and Chuji watched with wide eyes and fallen jaws. Wow, what the hell was that? Chuji stuttered out. It's like Forehead didn't even see him, like he was invisible. Ino breathed out. Shikamaru frowned darkly. No, it wasn't just Naruto. Sasuke is the only person she saw. Everything else was damned. Shikamaru spat with venom, actually making Ino flinch. Did you see the look on Sasuke's face? Yeah. Chuji bellowed a bit loudly. It was like he was totally doing it on purpose, just to hurt Naruto. No way. Sasuke wouldn't do that, would he? Ino asked, not sure of herself. Shikamaru shot Ino a dark look that she wouldn't forget anytime soon. You should know the answer to that by now. Do you honestly still have feelings for that prick? Ino opened her mouth to reply, to maybe even take up for Sasuke, but she found herself at a loss for words. There was no way in hell she could deny that Sasuke had done that on purpose. It was obvious. We need to find Naruto, Shikamaru said, beginning to walk away. Why? Ino called. Didn't you see all that blood? Even with those soldier pills, Naruto's going to be in trouble if he doesn't get to the hospital. How do you know he didn't go there already? Ino asked again. Because Naruto would never go to the hospital on his own accord, and because of what just happened. Think, Ino. You're acting like the Uchiha-obsessed fangirl you used to be. Shikamaru caught Ino off guard again. speaking coldly towards her. She had never wanted to be on the Nara's bad side when he was serious. But once again, she couldn't deny that he was right. She had all intentions of coming to propose to Sasuke, wanting to forget how he had betrayed the village, how he had almost killed her friends on several occasions. She knew almost nothing about the boy, yet she still claimed to love him, even after 3 years. Shikamaru was right, it was obsession, but not as bad as Sakura's. She stopped that line of thinking before it got too far. Right now was the time to find the knucklehead. She walked toward the area where Team 7 had just had its makeshift reunion. Her gaze caught the few spots of blood that dotted the ground, and she turned away sadly. She closed her eyes, using a clan technique to sense if Naruto had gone far or not. Surprisingly, she could feel the path of his Shunshin, which shouldn't have been possible. Most ninja couldn't produce a strong enough chakra distortion to leave behind residue, and that's because the Shunshin wasn't meant for traveling long distances. It was usually used to get outside of a building or several feet away from a potential enemy. The longest recorded Shunshin was only a 100-meter radius. So as she prepared to see if she could physically follow Naruto through his Shunshin, she almost passed out as she felt his chakra signature all the way on the Hokage monument. It took her several minutes and almost a dozen Shunshins to reach the Hokage monument. Taking several minutes to catch her breath, she looked over at the blonde, sitting on the fourth head and looking out over the village that he had saved on many different occasions. Even as the wind blew, his hair bellowing in the wind, he seemed rock still. Ino slowly walked over to him, her first train of thought being to scold the boy back to his senses and get him to the hospital. However, as she approached, she saw his wound already healing rapidly and tears streaming down his face. "Naruto," she whispered. "Why are you here?" He called, voice deep and hoarse at the same time. Why are you crying?" she asked, not wanting to tell him that they had seen what had happened. "It's nothing, go away," he called, and then silence enveloped them. Even the wind died down. Instead of taking the route that she would have several hours ago, Ino walked towards the blonde and sat down next to him. "Holding it isn't going to make it any better," she said and put an arm around his shoulder. He tensed but relaxed several seconds later. "Is it so wrong to want just one thing in my life?" Ino's eyes widened. What you mean? When we were younger, what did I ever do to anybody? What did I do to deserve to be hated by the entire village? To be beaten and ridiculed, segregated, and then to have my education sabotaged in the academy. I was placed on a team where my sensei thought I was useless. I was in love with a girl who would beat me for giving her a compliment, and my so-called best friend would try to kill me. All I wanted was a little happiness in my life. But I stopped that too when I decided not to give Hinata the chance she deserved, when she risked her life for me, almost died for me. Yet I still went to Sakura. Ino frowned at hearing what had happened when pain attacked the village. I took on the world, survived the damn war, to make everyone happy, to make sure you were all safe. And in the end, I'm left with nothing. Ino's lips were sealed. Her heart ached, and she felt as if the burden that Naruto carried over those years were finally dumped onto her. Her own eyes watered at the thought that the usually loud Shinobi was speaking as if he were to be put to death. There was nothing left for him, and all she was doing was sitting here, speechless. She couldn't do more for him, and seeing him like that now, she felt pure hatred towards Sakura and Sasuke. The next thing she knew, Naruto was crying in her shoulder, letting out all the anguish, pain, heartache, and regret that had accumulated over the years. He was pouring out his soul, and in the end there would be nothing left. As Naruto finished speaking, everything seemed to vanish. Ino looked him in the eyes and felt her spirit crumble. He was a shell, a fragile, brittle outward appearance of what used to be Uzumaki Naruto. There was no sadness, anger, or happiness, just the glare that made her heart ache and the silence that enveloped the world far beyond the horizon. He faced away from her, gazing back outside. Was I asking too much to have anything at all? Am I destined to know true pain, just like Nagato had wanted? The ensuing silence that followed chilled Ino to her core. Naruto paused, his gaze finally leaving the outside world. He straightened his back and then swiftly turned, letting Ino's head fall to his bed. He rolled her to her back, leaning over her and pinning her down by her wrist. Ino's eyes widened as she gazed up into the stoic face of the Uzumaki. Naruto-kun, what are you doing? She gasped out, both fear and confusion rushing through her head. If I were Sasuke, would you ask what I was doing? Ino's eyes widened. Her throat began to dry as her eyes clouded. You set yourself, Ino. If you would have gotten to Sasuke before Sakura, you would have let him do whatever he felt like to you. No, Ino whispered out, tears slowly rolling down her cheeks. Naruto leaned down, his face only inches from the Yamanaka's. He felt her tremble, breath catching in her chest. Are you really over him, Ino? He whispered into her ear. Am I really what you want? Or am I second best, just like with Sakura? Naruto sucked on her neck, drawing a pleasurable gasp. Ino's body jerked from the unexpected contact, and her breathing quickened. Naruto. She gasped out, shutting her eyes tight. Suddenly, she pushed him away, standing swiftly and backing away towards the door. No, what's gotten into you? You're not the Naruto-kun I know. You're acting like Sasuke. Naruto finished for her, a humorless chuckle following. Why? Why would you do something like that? Naruto frowned and stood up. Ino froze again, wanting to back away more as he slowly walked towards her. Finally, as he did make it right in front of her, she found that she was pinned again against a wall. Because it's you, Ino, you're starting to act like the saints I was talking about. Bad things happen to good people. Ino didn't know how to respond. She didn't truly know what he meant. Ino, if Sakura would have taken me instead of Sasuke that day, we wouldn't be here now. I would be with her, happily taking whatever she dished out at me. And when, or if, I finally saw the shit I was going through, I would have somehow ended up with Hinata. But none of that happened, and here I find myself with you in my room again, trying your hardest to keep the little piece of light there is left in me. Naruto pulled Ino into a hug, but her arms hung uselessly to the side as she comprehended what he was saying. You're acting like I did not too long ago, when I still tried to hold on to the piece of light in Sasuke that wasn't there. I wasted my life for him and her. Now, I'm in the position of Sasuke, looking at you across a gorge that will never be filled. The longer you try to catch me, the further away I'll get. Ino's arms wrapped around Naruto, catching him off guard. Damn it, shut the hell up, Baka. She was crying. You're so stupid. Ino, how can you get further away if I never planned to let you go? Naruto's eyes widened. Everything that he had just said seemed to freeze in the air around them. You're right. Me and you would have never been in this position had things gone down the way we wanted them to at first. But like I said before, what if they're just that? We can't reverse time, so all we can do is move forward. Even if you weren't my first choice and I wasn't yours, we're here now. What I feel for you, Naruto-kun, I'm not comparing it to Sasuke. I'm not looking at anyone else. I just want you, and you alone. Our lives may have fallen to ruins, and trying too hard to be a saint was just asking for that. It's our fault for not knowing when to give up. Sometimes it's for the best. You and I are totally different people now than we were several weeks ago. I'm trying to grow up and take the world seriously, and you're finally trying to think of yourself above others. Ino chuckled tiredly, feeling just as drained as Naruto. She leaned onto him, sighing deeply. I guess all I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how we got here or why. It only matters what we do now. What I feel for you is real Naruto-kun, and not based on what I could have had with the Uchiha. Ino smirked. Actually, if I were to compare it, this would be the grand luxury prize of the century. Naruto closed his eyes, letting out a long sigh. He pulled Ino even closer. Since when could you give pep talks like that? He asked silently. Since you stopped, she whispered back. They stood in silence for several moments, both dead tired and finally coming to terms with a semi-peace. Naruto felt as if Ino had accomplished what he couldn't. She had saved someone from plunging into darkness. It brought a sense of regret to him, but he quickly shook it away. He knew that it was finally time for him to stop acting like a saint, a savior. He was human, just like the rest of the world. Okay, I got one important question, Naruto said as he released Ino. Ino cocked an eyebrow. What? Want a drink? Chapter 8. Love Lost in the Night. The night air sent chills down his spine. The events of so recent, were still a mystery to him. All he could do was wonder, and wondering was nowhere near as good as knowing for him. He was a Nara, damn it. He was supposed to be the one coming up with answers. So why couldn't he do more? Even now, he wondered if his plan for Tsunade and the girls would be enough. He wondered would they understand it, or even more, would they understand the underlying implications. He wanted more knowledge, which wasn't something new to a Nara. Knowledge, rational or not, was something they sought. It almost bordered the Uchiha's lust for power. But alongside that lust for knowledge was the value for friendship that he and his clan had gained since being connected deeply to the Yamanaka and Akimichi clans. Add that to the bonds he had formed with the other genin of his graduating class, and you had one damn worried shadow manipulator. Naruto was, and would always be his best friend in the entire universe. The reason he could say this is because Ino and Chuji were not his friends. They were his family, and he wouldn't let anyone tell him that they were less. Which finally brought him upon the topic of his worry. Naruto, whom he still thought had amnesia, was supposedly being taken care of by his sister. His sister, whom several weeks ago was still holding slight Uchiha fangirl-like tendencies. Apparently, though he didn't mind, she had taken a deep liking to the male blonde. What worried him was the fact that how could two people dealing with problems in their own separate lives pull together to fix it instead of making it worse? A side to his left let him know that a certain Sand Kunoichi was indeed pondering along the same lines as himself. He wanted to pull Temari closer to him as they trudged through the misty village. It was a thought that he instantly dismissed, seeing that even the Nara clan had a problem when it came to showing their emotions to women. The rain finally, after all these days, seemed to be letting up on the downtrodden village. It was a moment's reprieve that they would cherish. As they neared a small park, being just a path that wound through trees and around a lake, several branching streams covered by the beautiful half-moon bridge, Temari faced Shikamaru. Her deep, midnight blue eyes made Shikamaru want to crumble in on himself. His thirst for knowledge instantly had him wondering just how long could Temari's eyes be stared into before you lose your sanity, and how mysteriously and beautifully they shined in the moonlight. The first time he had met her, they seemed dark and dull, but that was only because of the worry that she had held for Gaara. But now that things had turned out for the better, for the Sand Trio at least, her eyes had gained a shine that could only be described as angelic. "Do you want to walk through the park?" she asked a bit sheepishly. It was weird for them both, knowing that a statement such as that would never usually leave the blonde's lips, even when they were alone together. Or at least in the sense that she blushed and couldn't make eye contact when she asked. So you don't have to go back home too soon," she added, hoping to save face. Even with them both knowing that they wanted to be more than just friends/comrades/escortee, because they were who they were, they just couldn't come out and say it. To Shikamaru, his genius nature finally decided to take a standstill. The side that had been awakened by one Naruto, Uzumaki Namikaze, reared its head. The side that was impulsive and had confidence in any and all things it did. Tonight, he would confess. "Yeah, I need to clear my head a bit more anyway," he replied as if he hadn't noticed her fidgety movements. The small glance downwards showed that she was a bit upset. He knew that somewhere deep inside the Kunoichi, she had wanted him to realize how much she really liked him too. The two began to walk slowly through the small park, the moonlight bathing the lake in a magnificent, ethereal glow. Its reflection was more like a pure light than a refraction. Even while they walked in silence, just an inch apart due to the narrowness of the path, Shikamaru kept stealing glances at the shorter blonde next to him. His heart beat with every step they took. It would have burst from his chest if he realized that when he looked away, she looked at him. Finally coming to an opening, which split into two paths leading around the lake, the two stood still. Temari looked left while Shikamaru looked right. They both took a step in their respective direction and paused, looking back at the other. "I want to go this way," they said simultaneously. "This way," they called together again. Temari folded her arms and cocked her hip. Shikamaru put a hand in his pocket and held his head. "Really, must we do this now? It's late, Temari." "So, you shouldn't have agreed to walk through the park if that's the case." The look Shikamaru gave her made her want to jump in the lake. His eyes narrowed and became calculating. She knew those eyes to be the ones he adorned when being scolded by his mother. She didn't apologize, though she didn't speak afterward. The two stood in awkward silence, the just as silent wind blowing small buds of cherry blossoms across the ground. They wouldn't bloom just yet, but maybe after all the days of rain. "Temari," Shikamaru started with a sigh. "They lead to the same place. I'll go this way, and you go that way." For a moment, she began to contemplate what the hell the Nara was thinking. But seeing his gaze drift up towards the moon, seeing how the pale light cast a glow on the lover of darkness, she knew that this wasn't a moment to think about. This was a moment to be decisive. Without a word, she turned on her heel and began to walk around the lake. Shikamaru himself turned away and began to walk around in the opposite direction. From this point, the thoughts of both teenage Shinobi would be forever sealed within the night, under the full moon, and bathed deep within the lake itself. Alone, in an empty husk of paradise, performing what truly looked to be the wedding of the wolves, both of their minds swept down to their most deepest secrets and desires. With each step they took, wind blew stronger, the water of the lake rippled, reflecting the unspoken thoughts that they were afraid or incapable of speaking into reality. The ripples themselves traveled along the water's surface to convey silent and distant messages between them, light sprays of mist along the shore giving birth to tears that they could not shed. Leaves peeled away from the trees and blew over and around Shikamaru. On the other side, sand tingled Temari's skin as it spun in small whirlwinds from the small beach next to her. Both blew out to the center of the lake where they mixed and spun about in a marvelous dance of nature. Step by step, inch by inch, the two now stood only feet from each other. Shikamaru's eyes stern and more assuring than any other time she had seen them. Her eyes, watery, damn near in tears. The distance, however small, grew smaller as they traversed the several feet to stand right before each other. Everything that they wanted but couldn't say to each other was known, somehow through the wonders that they called nature. So without opening his mouth to utter a single word, a simple lyric of oral understanding, Shikamaru knelt before her. Sabaku no Tori, matriarch of Sunagakure, the village hidden in sand, daughter of the late Yondame Kazakage, and sister of the current Godame Kazakage, will you marry me? Even the wind stilled itself, the sand and leaves falling gently into the water and sinking to be forever forgotten at its depths. She let tears go slowly. What was going through her mind was typical of herself, a testament to the real her. The unnecessarily wordy proposal was both typical of Shikamaru, and yet not what she expected. Honestly, she wanted to laugh, but the overwhelming emotions flooding both her brain and heart completely pushed the thought into the lake with the rest of the unspoken secrets. 1,000, a million times yes. A fairy tale ending was what this felt like for the two, as Shikamaru smiled brighter than he had ever before, picking up the older kunoichi and spinning her about as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Even the wind picked up again, making this real fiction feel even more storybook. What the two held right at that moment, it was for them and them alone. Though they knew the problems of the outside worlds still existed, and would still exist when they walked to their separate resting places, they held this happiness with selfishness. They were happy for the moment, and happiness was all too rare nowadays. The chirping crickets and singing sea-sea-dos paved the tone of the night for the two. As they sat in a tree several yards from the Hyuga clan, they gazed up into the beautiful moon in content silence. However, An overlaying sheet of anxiety and tension was barely being pierced by the serenity of the night. Tintin and Niji were obviously not as happy as they could have been. However, they decided the best course of actions at the moment were to revel in the short time that they would have to be happy. So as Niji leaned against the tree, and Tintin leaned onto him, being sustained by the Hyuga, having both arms wrapped securely around her waist, they smiled into the darkness that shadowed their true feelings. Tintin sighed and nestled her head right into the crook of Niji's neck, her hair draping over his arms and chest since she had taken the buns down. She closed her eyes, opting to just listen to the beat of his heart instead of dwell on the events that were supposed to transpire the morning to come. "So, you never told me what happened to Sasuke," Tintin whispered into the air. After a small exchange of blows, an ANBU came by and stopped our spar. Unfortunately, I hadn't done as much damage as I wanted, and the Uchiha fled into the safety of his room, no doubt to cuddle with his teddy bear he calls an ego. Tintin chuckled at the summary. Yeah, that was pretty much like Niji. Never one to back down, and never one to let the enemy get the last chide. Well, at least after Naruto was done with him. She still remembered that Chunin exam, some 3 or 4 years ago now. The Niji back then and the Niji now were so different it was scary. And the reason was Naruto. A 13-year-old blonde kid, wearing fire-wool orange and shouting claims of being Hokage, all while being the dead last of that year's graduating class, had successfully removed the unbreakable stick known as fate that was up Niji's ass. If you were to tell her that several years prior, she would have personally shoved every single last weapon on her personnel down your throat for such hope-bringing lies. That is, if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. This had, of course, led to the Hyuga reevaluating a lot of his beliefs and attitude. This, in return, led to the Hyuga finally showing interest in the team that he was currently holding. So, even if they weren't exactly dating, they owed their happiness to Naruto. Seeing as neither knew exactly how to ask the other out, they just decided to show intimacy at times where it just felt right. If things go wrong, tomorrow, I'll personally see to it that the Uchiha's severed head be enumerated into the Konoha Museum. Niji spoke disdainfully. The topic seemed unavoidable now. And have your clan rain down holy fire on your ass? I don't think so. I do want to have children one day. Since she felt her partner stiffen at that statement, Tintin could only guess that she had successfully pushed the right button. Feeling him warm up was another indication, and then finally feeling something pressed against her lower back let her know that Niji was indeed just as much a human, male, teenager as all of the rest of their friends. Though she was better at hiding her blush from the man behind her, she also went silent after thinking about the statement a bit more as well. "You would be willing to? In the future?" Niji asked, for the first time not knowing exactly how to word his sentence. For her part, Tintin could only nod her head with a quick MHM. After several seconds of letting the building heat between them fade, Niji pulled the girl even closer. Now, they could say that they were officially dating. The only problem with this was getting approval from Hayashi. Of course, Hyugas, especially of the side branch, had been permitted to date and even marry outside of the clan. However, every child was branded with the cage bird seal, and that was something that Niji wished to avoid for both his children and Tintin's sake. Tintin was blissfully unaware of the thoughts going through her lover's mind. Though as the silence weighed down on her, her thoughts finally drifted onto the matters of the next day. It was all or nothing. Depending on what happened tomorrow would determine if she and Niji even get to be together anymore. More things were on the line than even she knew. But one thing was for certain. She was going to use this last night to her advantage. "Hey Niji, you want to go to a hotel?" Every hit echoed off the walls. Every grunt played over in her ears. Every single last bit of sweat flashed in front of her eyes. Every smile she received brought tears to them. "Keep it up." He spoke in the midst of it, but she wasn't deterred. His voice was just reassurance that she wasn't dreaming. Hinata Hyuga was training almost as an equal with her father, Hayashi Hyuga. Each thrust in her direction was blocked with effortless precision and countered with even more deadly accuracy. The sweat coating both Hyuga's brows was enough to show that this was no mere training session. Hayashi Hyuga was not holding back. His Byakugan catching every single grit and smirk on his daughter, he knew she was not as well. Saikiyashin, Hinata cried suddenly. Hayashi, having never heard the call before, was surprised to be pushed backwards by a wall of chakra. His balance was thrown off as he felt himself falling backwards. In the next instant, he was flat on his back, Hinata over him with a handful of his shirt gripped in one hand and palm positioned right in front of his face, letting him know that if she so wanted, he would be a stain on the floor right now. The shock not only left Hayashi speechless for several seconds, but the smirking and heavily breathing Hinata was slowly starting to realize what she had done. For the first time ever, her father uttered words that she thought she would never hear. I concede. Hinata stood up instantly, her face showing little emotion. Hayashi dusted himself off and looked at his daughter in bewilderment. He smiled softly, putting a hand on her shoulder. What's wrong? You've beaten me. I thought that you'd be ecstatic. The wry nod that he received let him know two things. One, the intense training to get back in the good graces with Hyuga had left the girl's nice and shy side dangling on the edge of death. Two, that same nice and shy side was being prodded to fall by the events that would transpire the next morning. Father, the voice of Hanabi drew both older Hyuga's attention. The younger girl walked in and bowed, kneeling in front of both her sister and father. Since Wani-chan has beaten you, does that mean she is the legitimate heir again? Hayashi held a pensive look as he gazed down at his youngest daughter. Through the years of himself treating Hinata like a disease to the Hyuga had risen the same sort of feelings in the younger Hyuga. Right now, he didn't know how to explain to the young girl that things change, and so do people. He was spared, however, as Hinata knelt down in front of her sister. Hanabi, I will not be taking the throne to the Hyuga clan. Once I was disinherited from that position, the only way for an appeal would be for me to wish to become heiress again. Hanabi looked at her sister confused. But why don't you want to be heiress anymore? Don't you want to get revenge on the people who disinherited you? Hayashi didn't miss the quick gaze in his direction from his youngest girl. Honestly, he felt it was well-deserved. However, he also wondered what Hanabi was getting at. She had shown no type of sisterly caring for Hinata since they were children. Why now? No, Hanabi. If I led the Hyuga clan on revenge, I would be no better than how father used to be and those despicable elders. I would want to lead the clan in love and unification. However,